Chapter 801 Grand Cultivation Era arrives. When he arrived in the God world, the 5 spirit orbs floated and rotated around Suzimo in the void. These 5 beads radiated immense power. Once the 5 gathered together, a mysterious connection seemed to form between them, and 5 different types of spirit force began to emanate. They formed a large circle enveloping Suzimo. "The Grand Cultivation Era," Suzimo murmured. He extended his right hand and rotated it 90 degrees in the air. The 5 spirit orbs soared into the sky with a mighty force. At that moment, the world darkened. All things lost their color. The skies churned with turbulent clouds, and sand and stones flew as heavy rain and fierce wind swept in. All living beings on the God world looked up at the sky, confused and overwhelmed, as if doomsday had come. Streams of spirit force spread out from the 5 spirit orbs. Long ago, humans of this era had no access to spirit force. Now, for the first time, spirit force swept across the sky. Within the Nirvana Fire Pearl, blazing flames erupted like a phoenix soaring through the sky with a piercing cry. Inside the soft water pearl, a river of weak water surged continuously, flowing and churning. A single drop of weak water could crush the void. This long river meandered and drifted away. In the Destruction Wind Pearl, a hurricane formed from gales roared past, raising towering waves across the land. The shattered void of the heavens was stirred into chaos. This storm seemed capable of tearing the sky apart. The God Thunder Pearl echoed with thunder. Lightning bolts, like silver dragons, weaved through the void. All kinds of thunder and lightning roared across the sky, crackling with the fury of the heavens. Within the Second Wood Pearl, the aura of life was dense. It mended the broken void, as if birthing new life. Green light blossomed and pierced through the heavens. These were the 5 spirit orbs, carrying earth-shattering power as they slowly moved toward one another, eventually merging step by step. At the moment the 5 beads became one, a thunderous explosion sounded, like a clap of thunder breaking the silence. A beam of light flashed across the entire world. The sound of rain poured down like someone dumping a bucket of water from above. The whole world was submerged in this torrential downpour. This was no ordinary rain, it was spirit liquid formed from spirit force. The rain fell to the earth, nourishing all living things. Since the creatures of this world had never experienced spirit force before, even a single breath now made them feel significantly stronger. After evaporating, some of the rain seeped into the earth while some drifted above the land. Both animals and humans could clearly feel their bodies becoming stronger. But without traditional cultivation methods, this strengthening had its limits. The heavy rain continued to pour, and it was clear it wouldn't stop anytime soon. Suzimo was in no hurry. Once the rain of spirit liquid was complete, the world's spirit force would be fully activated. As for how long it would last, even he had no idea. Next, he had to consider how to bring the cultivation techniques from the primordial heartlands into this world. He wasn't short on cultivation methods. He had destroyed several sects before, including the heaven-severing Sacred Ground and the Lan Imperial clan, both of which had grand emperors in their history. He had preserved countless techniques and meridian skills accumulated over many eras by those sects. He had no use for them, but they were perfect for a world just beginning to establish a cultivation system. What Suzimo had to consider was how to make these techniques appear in the God world naturally. He couldn't let the people here suspect that they were merely beings raised inside the God world, that every move they made was being monitored. In this world, many legends also existed. Legends of gods, ghosts, Buddhas, and demons. These could be considered superstition, and as humanity progressed out of ignorance, superstition gradually faded. Now, Suzimo planned to use these legends of gods and ghosts to create ruins and inheritance sites, letting people of this world gradually discover them. Eventually, they would come to accept cultivation. If necessary, he could have the dragon gods of the myriad beast realm show themselves, first shattering the locals' worldview and then helping them rebuild a new one. After a long period of work, Suzimo exited the God world. Now that the finals of the Martial Heaven tournament were about to begin, He also wanted to witness the showdown between the most elite talents of the God world. The finals would still be held in the Heaven Genesis microcosm. The city had projection displays so everyone could watch. But people like him could go directly into the Heaven Genesis microcosm to watch in person. Who do you favor this time? On the way to the finals, people were discussing fervently. I'm rooting for Primordius. As the holy son of the supreme primal sacred ground, he's very mysterious. His opponents so far haven't even forced him to use full strength. I'm going with Bailey Xiao. Ever since she was defeated by Su Zimo years ago, her strength has made a qualitative leap. Plus, she has the soaring immortal physique. Her future is limitless. No one's betting on the rogue cultivators? Rogues? They might be dark horses, but winning the championship? Not likely. In past years, how many rogue cultivators have actually won? True. Everyone chatted as they arrived around the finals arena. There was only one arena. It spanned several thousand square meters, made of top-grade diamond, incredibly hard, tough enough to withstand attacks even from divine vein experts. Representatives from each sect took their seats, and the 16 contestants began drawing lots for one-on-one battles. Once the drawing was done, an elder from the Bailey Imperial clan presided over the matches. The first bout was between Xue Kuan of the Purgatory Sacred Ground and Shenyuan Shen. Xue Kuan was a rising star in the Purgatory Sacred Ground. In Tian Mozi's era, he had carved a bloody path forward. Who do you favor? Su Qingshan looked at Su Zimo and asked. Shenyuan Shen. Su Zimo replied without hesitation. Why? His popularity isn't very high this time, Su Qingshan asked curiously. Look at the axe on his back, Su Zimo said. Looking up, Shenyuan Shen carried an axe on his back. The front half was wrapped in cloth, making it hard to see. Only the handle was exposed, black mixed with gold, its material unknown. Do you know what that is? Su Qingshan asked curiously. Even he couldn't tell just by looking at the axe handle. I'm just guessing, but my instincts are usually right, Su Zimo said. Father, you'll see soon enough. As the Bailey Imperial clan elder announced the start of the match, the two contestants walked slowly toward the arena. Shenyuan Shen cracked his neck, then tossed the axe from his back onto the platform. Chapter 802 Reunion with Bailey Xiao. The moment the axe hit the ground, a sharp aura burst forth from it. It instantly shattered the cloth wrapped around its surface, revealing the true form of the axe. It was a massive axe entirely golden in color, intricately carved, with its surface composed of both gold and black. Both colors radiated a dazzling light. Many people found their eyes stinging after staring at the axe for too long. The sharp aura made it impossible to look directly at. Two golden dragon-like designs on either side of the axe gleamed with a brilliant gilt finish. This is... Su Qingshan stroked his chin and frowned slightly. The Golden Emperor Axe, Su Zimo said with a smile beside him. Legend has it that Grand Emperor Shenri once had two weapons. One was the Sun God Wheel, and the other was the Sun God Axe. But this Golden Emperor Axe doesn't quite look like the Sun God Axe, Su Qingshan said. If I'm right, after Shenyuan Shen obtained the Sun God Axe, he fed it with his own blood, Su Zimo said. Because he possesses the Golden Emperor battle physique. Once the axe absorbed his blood, it inherited battle body blood and underwent a transformation. It's no exaggeration to say this Golden Emperor Axe is even stronger than most Grand Emperor true treasures. As for Xue Kuan, his personal strength isn't bad, but in terms of weapons, he's far behind. Hearing Su Zimo's words, Sword Monarch next to him nodded in agreement. The two on the arena had already begun fighting. Shenyuan Shen not only held the advantage in weaponry but also in physical prowess thanks to his battle body. On the other side, Xue Kuan was said to have comprehended the prison cage left behind by the Slaughter Emperor, which is how he made a name for himself in the Purgatory Sacred Ground. With the Golden Emperor axe in hand, Shenyuan Shen looked like a war god, unleashing wide, powerful strikes. Each axe strike shattered the air, and even the diamond-forged arena was starting to crack. Xue Kuan could only dodge and retreat. Just as Xue Kuan was falling into a disadvantage, suddenly, his body flickered, catching a flaw in Shenyuan Xuantian's stance. He grabbed Shenyuan Xuantian's clothes with both hands and threw him out. Shenyuan Xuantian flipped in midair and landed steadily. With a cold snort, he slammed the axe handle into the ground, looking at Xue Kuan with disdain. Pointless struggle. Just admit defeat. Keep a little dignity, Shenyuan Xuantian said. Is that so? Xue Kuan smiled faintly. He raised his right hand, palm facing upward, and softly shouted, "Abyssal prison." The next moment, black energy swirled at the center of the arena, enveloping the surrounding area for 1,000 miles. Dozens of cages formed, trapping Shenyuan Xuantian inside. Not bad, someone praised below. While dodging Shenyuan Xuantian's attacks, Xue Kuan quietly spread abyssal energy across the arena. By the time Shenyuan Xuantian noticed, it was already too late. Looks like the Holy Sun miscalculated, Sword Monarch chuckled. Xue Kuan might win this. You're wrong. Su Zimo shook his head. You must always understand, before absolute strength, any skill or strategy is useless and even laughable. So this is the abyssal prison, said the trapped Shenyuan Xuantian with a light laugh. He slowly raised the Golden Emperor axe, and the pressure around him began to rise. Golden Emperor lifts heaven. With a loud shout, the axe fell. A thunderous boom echoed all around. At this moment, Shenyuan Xuantian fully activated both his battle body and the Golden Emperor axe. Golden blood flowed through his body. He looked like a descended war god. Each swing of the axe tore through the abyssal prison like paper. Xue Kuan's luck is just bad, someone sighed. Shenyuan Xuantian specializes in raw power, which just happens to counter the abyssal prison. Besides, Xue Kuan hasn't mastered it. Back in the day, the Slaughter Emperor could casually create countless abyssal prisons. Opponents would die from exhaustion inside, unable to break free. I concede, said Xue Kuan, retreating to the edge of the arena with nowhere left to go. The matches proceeded in an orderly fashion. In the next 2 matches, Jiang Shi faced a rogue cultivator and won. Qi Shui faced another rogue cultivator and also claimed victory. Of the original 4 rogue cultivators in the top 16, only 2 now remained. Match 4, Bailey Xiao versus Dan Qingyang, announced the elder of the Bailey Imperial clan. The crowd began to stir. Bailey Xiao had recently become a rising star in the Eastern continent. Backed by both the true martial sacred ground and the Bailey Imperial clan, her progress had been remarkable. It was said that ever since she lost to Su Zimo, she had remained undefeated. She was one of the favorites to win this tournament. As for Dan Qingyang, he came from a family of alchemists and rarely appeared in public. Most people knew little about him. Su Zimo looked at the woman on the arena. After several years apart, she had changed a lot, both in strength and presence. She stood on the stage in a blue robe, cold and composed. From the side, her gaze was icy, like a block of frozen ice that hadn't melted in 10,000 years. Yet she was still breathtakingly beautiful, especially with her noble and indifferent aura. She looked like a fairy who had descended into the mortal realm. Her blue robe fluttered gently in the wind, and at some point her long hair had turned golden. A few strands danced beside her ears. My judgment wasn't wrong, Su Qingshan sighed. Back then, I wanted to pair you 2 up, knowing she'd have a brilliant future. She is impressive, Su Zimo nodded slightly. What? Feeling something now? It's not too late, Su Qingshan joked. I'm just being objective. From the last time we met until now, Bailey Zhao's growth has exceeded my expectations, Su Zimo said calmly. But that just makes it more interesting. Give her endless hope, then crush it completely, that's fun. If she were too weak, I'd be disappointed. You're quite hostile toward her, Su Qingshan frowned, looking at Su Zimo. Hostile? Not really. In my eyes, she's already a dead person, Su Zimo replied. The only question is how I want her to die, and when. I can handle things on the sex side, but... Su Qingshan hesitated. But what? Su Zimo asked. You should know, her former identity was the Jade Purity Immortal, the first war general under the Grand Empress, Su Qingshan said. Whether the Grand Empress still pays attention to her is unknown. But if the Grand Empress is watching, then no one can interfere. Father, you're wrong. Su Zimo shook his head. I admit, the Empress is stunning. Chapter 803, 8-Star Demon Locking Pill. I admit the Grand Empress is stunning. If we were to rank all the emperors of the Imperial era, she would definitely be in the top 10. Su Zimo nodded. He added matter-of-factly. But the primordial heartlands are ancient beyond measure. Isn't the Grand Empress herself just another speck of dust in this vast starry sky? We're all specks of dust, Su Qingshan laughed. Perhaps that was true. To individuals, they might become powerful, but to the entire primordial heartlands, they really were just dust. That's why, Dad, I want to become one of the strongest on the primordial heartlands. So what if she's the Grand Empress? Su Zimo said with a smile. On the arena, Bailey Xiao stood coldly. On the other side, the Dan Imperial clan's holy son, Dan Qingyang, slowly walked up. He wore a loose green robe and had a laid-back, casual demeanor as he walked. With a grin, he looked at Bailey Xiao and said, Miss, after this match, would you care to have a meal with me? Has it started? Bailey Xiao asked the judge beside her. Start. The judge quickly nodded. In the next moment, Bailey Xiao dashed forward and charged directly at Dan Qingyang. Her blue robe fluttered in the wind as she shattered the void and pressed her jade-like palms against Dan Qingyang's chest. Miss, don't be in such a hurry. We've got plenty of time, Dan Qingyang chuckled. Suddenly, his body leaned backward as 8 pills appeared, orbiting around him. 8-Star Demon Locking Pill. Those below the stage murmured in surprise. And it's a perfected 8-Star Demon Locking Pill, already sealed with 8 demons. The crowd buzzed with amazement. As a family of alchemists, the Dan Imperial clan was considered the best alchemy family in the Eastern continent. But alchemists traditionally had one major weakness. They spent their lives studying pill crafting and refining medicines, but lacked combat strength. They rarely focused on fighting. As the saying goes, you can't have both the fish and the bear's paw. This situation persisted for tens of millions of years. Since Zhen Wu founded the Imperial era, this flaw had existed. Most alchemists would bring 1 or 2 powerful bodyguards to protect them. In return, they would refine pills for those protectors for free. But no matter how strong others were, it didn't change the alchemist's own weakness. Later, all the alchemists on the primordial heartlands worked together to solve this problem. The wheel of history slowly turned, erasing all power within it. As the saying goes, a single spark can start a prairie fire. Methods to strengthen alchemists emerged one after another, some good, some bad. But there was never a unified solution. Until one day, the young alchemy emperor, a rare genius, emerged. He not only bore the heaven's will of that generation as an alchemist but also solved this problem that had plagued alchemists for millions of years. The solution: the 8-Star Demon Locking Pill. All things have spirits, plants, animals, humans, and beasts alike. The same principle applied to pills. They were made from plants or from demon cores. If during the refining process, one could seal the demonic energy and soul of a beast inside a demon pill, it would allow an alchemist to use the power of beasts, resulting in a real increase in combat strength. As more demon pills were refined and evolved, the power alchemists could gain from them increased as well. The only challenge was how to refine such evolved demon pills and seal both the power and soul of a creature within them. The alchemy emperor solved this and didn't keep it secret. He shared the method of crafting 8-Star Demon Locking Pills with all alchemists. 8-Star Demon Locking Pills could contain up to 8 pills. That was the alchemy emperor's limit back then. For Dan Qingyang to reproduce 8 pills now was impressive and a testament to his talent. Dan Qingyang waved his hands, and the 8-Star Demon Locking Pills spun around him, finally forming a deep vortex. Bailey Xiao remained calm throughout. As each demon pill shattered, a powerful force infused into Dan Qingyang's body. Some became fire, others turned into wind or surging water. Each of the 8 pills represented a different type of power. Dan Qingyang's aura kept growing stronger, pressing against the void with explosive sounds. The 8-star demon-locking pills included an ancient rhinoceros for strength, a purple cloud eagle for speed, and a woolly mammoth for defense. Each type of beast attribute was present, now enhancing Dan Qingyang's body. He had undergone a transformation. "I wonder how Bailey Xiao will handle this," someone nearby commented. "Just keep watching." Bailey Xiao dashed forward again, spirit force surging in her palms as she attacked Dan Qingyang. Dan Qingyang let out a cold snort and met her head-on. The two clashed, but the anticipated even battle never happened. Even with the support of the 8-star demon-locking pills, Dan Qingyang was still blown away. How is this possible?" Dan Qingyang asked in confusion. He looked at the woman before him, his expression changing. "Idiot!" Bailey Xiao snorted coldly. Ripples spread from her palms. Each strike seemed connected to the next. With each strike, the waves never ceased, leaving Dan Qingyang breathless. Stop! I surrender, all right?" Dan Qingyang shouted as he dodged in panic. Bailey Xiao landed another palm strike, sending Dan Qingyang flying once again. "Bailey Xiao wins," the referee announced, and the crowd erupted in surprise. "That was too easy. We couldn't even see what happened." Below the arena, Dan Qingyang rubbed his aching shoulder. The Dan Imperial Clan elder looked displeased. "Qingyang, that's not your full strength, is it?" "There's still a lot I didn't use," Dan Qingyang replied with a smile. "But there's no need anymore." "Do you even know what you're saying?" The Dan Imperial Clan elder frowned. "Elder Dan, if she hadn't held back just now, I might already be dead," Dan Qingyang said. "So I admit defeat willingly." Watching Dan Qingyang walk away, the elder frowned slightly. Held back? He hadn't seen anything just now. Beneath the arena, Su Zimo watched the scene and chuckled lightly. "Did you understand that, Holy Sun?" Sword Monarch asked beside him. "It can only be sensed, not explained." Su Zimo smiled. The 5th match was between the myriad beast sects Holy Sun, Kuang Qianshan, and Xiang Qianheng. The true martial sacred ground placed great importance on this match. But Su Zimo had little interest in the upcoming fights, so he left the arena and walked toward the outside of the Heaven Genesis microcosm. Just as he exited, someone was already waiting for him. Chapter 804, Otherworldly Zenith Palace returns. The person approaching was none other than the Lord of Samsara, now the current Holy Son of the Dao race, Dao Tianyun. "Holy Son Su, long time no see," the Lord of Samsara said with a smile. "Something you want?" Su Zimo asked calmly. "It's a pity you didn't participate in this Martial Heaven tournament. Miss Bailey originally wanted to face you," the Lord of Samsara said, shaking his head. "So eager to die?" Su Zimo replied. "That's not certain yet," the Lord of Samsara said with a burning gaze. "You've always been this confident, haven't you?" Su Zimo looked at the Lord of Samsara, then grabbed his collar and lifted him up. "Do you really want to die that badly? If young Master Su wanted to kill me, you would have done it already," the Lord of Samsara said with a grin. "What if I wiped out the Dao race?" Su Zimo said. "You were born there. Don't know if you still have any feelings for those people. This is between us. It has nothing to do with others," the Lord of Samsara said, his expression shifting slightly. "You're getting nervous," Su Zimo chuckled, releasing his grip. "I'm just here to deliver a message," the Lord of Samsara said after composing himself. "After the Martial Heaven tournament, Miss Bailey would like to challenge you to a match. Do you dare accept?" "A match? With no regard for life or death?" Su Zimo asked. "No, just a simple sparring session," the Lord of Samsara replied. "Then it's pointless," Su Zimo said, waving his hand. He ignored the Lord of Samsara and walked straight back into Bailey City. At this moment, Bailey City was bustling with excitement. People were watching the matches with great enthusiasm and discussing them among themselves. These competitors represented the future of the Eastern continent. On a small scale, this was a personal battle for the title of Grand Emperor. On a larger scale, it was a contest for heaven's will between the eastern continent and the other continents. Why was the middle continent so strong? It wasn't just about land area, it was because of the many lineages based there. These lineages directly influenced the overall power of their regions. The more lineages there were, the more options and opportunities common people had to join strong factions. So each continent was secretly competing. Not long after Su Zimo left, Monk Great Wisdom followed him out. Not staying to watch? Su Zimo smiled. They can't compare to you. Monk Great Wisdom shook his head. No point in watching. There are still a few worth noting, Su Zimo said. And the war for heaven's will is unpredictable. No one's confident they'll win. I believe in you, and I trust our ancestors' divination, Monk Great Wisdom said. The two wandered around Bailey City. At this time, the god world was still covered in heavy rain. Since the spirit force hadn't fully descended yet, Su Zimo wasn't in a rush to act. He'd wait until everything settled before arranging the ruins. In Bailey City, the gambling houses had the largest crowds. Some had correctly bet on the top 8, others left the competition with regret. The whole city was in a state of intense excitement and celebration. After a loop around the city, Su Zimo and Monk Great Wisdom were about to return to Bailey Manor. Suddenly, two figures blocked their path. Our palace master would like to meet you, they said. The two were dressed in plain clothes, ordinary in appearance, and smiled as they spoke to Su Zimo and Monk Great Wisdom. Su Zimo was a bit puzzled. He glanced at Monk Great Wisdom, then smiled. Let's go see. He didn't know what these people wanted, so curiosity made him follow. The two men led Su Zimo and Monk Great Wisdom into a narrow alleyway. Please enter, they said, stopping at the entrance of a large courtyard beside the alley. Mysterious, Monk Great Wisdom commented. Could this be one of your old acquaintances? I don't have many friends. No old acquaintances, really? Su Zimo replied, shaking his head. They opened the courtyard door, which faced a central living room. Two disciples in blue robes stood at the living room entrance. On the backs of their robes was a single character, Zenith. It reminded Su Zimo of a certain faction. More accurately, he had encountered them before. This way, please, our palace master awaits. Su Zimo and Monk Great Wisdom entered the living room. Beside it stood a woman in a luxurious blue robe, her back facing them. The robe shimmered like starlight. Its collar was high, shaped like a blooming flower, covering her neck completely. Her black hair was tied in a bun, secured with a jade hairpin. What business do you have with us? Monk Great Wisdom asked first. Let me introduce myself, the woman said, turning around and revealing a face that didn't match her attire. From behind, she looked like an older woman. But once she turned, she was clearly a young girl. About the same age as Su Zimo, with a slightly youthful face, almond-shaped features, heavy makeup, and striking red lips. Let me introduce myself. I'm Gong Yuner, the young palace master of the otherworldly Zenith Palace, she said with a smile. The otherworldly Zenith Palace. Su Zimo had heard that name again. He had encountered people from the otherworldly Zenith Palace before, back when he and the God Emperor were in the Elden Lands. At that time, they had tried to invade the Elden Lands but were killed by Su Zimo and his group. And in his past life, the name of this faction was infamous. Even more terrifying than many lineages. Why aren't you saying anything? Haven't heard of us? Gong Yuner smiled. Why did the young palace master seek us out? Monk Great Wisdom asked. He didn't know this faction but sensed they weren't friendly. I'd like to ask a favor, Gong Yuner said. We're strangers. Asking a favor outright might be inappropriate, Su Zimo said with a smile. You don't have to help, Gong Yuner smiled. But if you do, it could save your lives. We're not in danger. What's there to save us from? Monk Great Wisdom narrowed his eyes, then laughed softly. Then I won't beat around the bush. Bailey City is already surrounded by the otherworldly Zenith Palace, Gong Yuner said. Everyone's life here will be in my hands. You get what I'm saying, right? I control whether you live or die. Did you wake up yet? Monk Great Wisdom laughed and shook his head. Do you even know who's in this city? I've never heard of the otherworldly Zenith Palace before, don't know where you crawled out from, and yet you dare talk so big? Are you planning to challenge the entire Eastern continent? You're wrong. It's not that we don't dare. We came precisely for these people. Gong Yuner smiled. We must take the Eastern continent seriously, of course, but don't forget. The only real power here is the Bailey Imperial clan. A single clan. Chapter 805 Purpose Va Final Battle. The other lineages only sent a few elders to attend. Their main forces aren't present, Gong Yuner replied. You should understand what I mean. The only one capable of opposing us is the Bailey Imperial clan. They won't call for reinforcements? Monk Great Wisdom snorted coldly. I don't believe your otherworldly Zenith Palace can take down an imperial lineage so easily. I'm not afraid to tell you. The void in this realm has already been sealed by us. Any form of communication for help is impossible. Hearing this, Monk Great Wisdom's expression changed slightly. If they dared to come, they must have come prepared. If it was true, then they were like fish in a barrel, no escape possible. What do you want us to do? Monk Great Wisdom looked at Su Zimo. Seeing Su Zimo remain silent, he turned and asked. It's simple. Gong Yuner took 6 crystals from her storage ring. She said, just bury these 6 crystals in the 4 corners of the Heaven Genesis microcosm according to my instructions, and you'll keep your lives. Hearing her words and seeing the crystals in her hand, Monk Great Wisdom left the decision to Su Zimo. All right, I agree, Su Zimo said. He took the crystals and saw that they were formation stones, filled with countless formation seals. It was hard to imagine how massive a formation this would be, requiring so many stones. And it was still unknown how many had been placed outside the city. A wise man submits to circumstances, Gong Yuner said. Even without your help, we could have done it. It just would have been more troublesome. Let's hope you don't play any tricks. Otherwise, suffer the consequences. Su Zimo smiled and said casually, as long as it's targeting the Bailey Imperial clan, I'm not interested in interfering. Once it's done, you can leave. That's my promise to you, Gong Yuner replied. Su Zimo nodded and was about to leave with Monk Great Wisdom when she called out again. Oh, by the way, Gong Yuner said, I heard you're the holy son of the true martial sacred ground, the number 1 among the younger generation of the Eastern continent. People gave me face. All that praise can be suffocating. Su Zimo smiled. I'd like to spar with you sometime, Gong Yuner said. You think you're strong? Su Zimo asked. Since the rise of the otherworldly Zenith Palace, we've rarely met any worthy opponents. Gong Yuner answered confidently. Then we might have a chance. Su Zimo waved casually and left with Monk Great Wisdom. In the living room, beside Gong Yuner, a shadowy figure had appeared without anyone noticing. The shadow flickered and became unclear. No body was visible, only a patch of shadow floating on the ground. You just let them go like that? Can you trust them? The shadow asked in a deep voice. They're smart people, Gong Yuner replied with a smile. And right now, getting into the Bailey Imperial clan, especially the Heaven Genesis microcosm, isn't easy. Don't be fooled by the city's liveliness. The Bailey Imperial clan is very cautious. They've been managing the city from the shadows to prevent chaos. I'm aware of that, the shadow responded. But none of them would have guessed that our otherworldly Zenith Palace would have the audacity to strike Bailey City now. Enough. Let's wait for the news, Gong Yuner said. If they betray me, we'll have to force our way in. We should always have a backup plan. Walking out of the alley, Monk Great Wisdom looked gloomy. What's wrong? Su Zimo asked. Are you really going to bury these crystals in the Heaven Genesis microcosm? Monk Great Wisdom asked. If they're capable of destroying the Bailey Imperial clan, why wouldn't I be happy to see it? Su Zimo chuckled. But this isn't just about the Bailey Imperial clan, it concerns the entire Eastern continent, Monk Great Wisdom said. What you're doing is basically betraying the whole Eastern continent. If anyone finds out, He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. Meh. No proof, no blame. Who would know? Su Zimo shrugged. Besides, who's to say whether it's the mantis stalking the cicada or the oriole behind? Stop overthinking it. Monk Great Wisdom sighed and asked, You know about the otherworldly Zenith Palace? I know a bit, but haven't really interacted with them, Su Zimo replied. Are they powerful? Monk Great Wisdom asked. Depends on the comparison. Su Zimo pointed at the sky. If you compare them to forces in the outer heavens, they're notable. But on the primordial heartlands, they're just SOSO. Outer heavens? You mean their origin is outer heavens? Monk Great Wisdom asked in surprise. Anything related to outer heavens was never simple. That's not something you can deal with. Let's go. Su Zimo waved his hand, and the two walked into the Heaven Genesis microcosm. At this moment, the quarterfinals were down to the final match. Jiang Shir and Xiang Qinheng had already advanced. The last battle was between Supreme Primal Sacred Grounds Holy Sun, Primordius, and Emo Chun. Primordius was a mysterious figure. Nothing about him was currently known. Emo Chun had previously made a deal with Su Zimo. Whether in the past life or this one, Su Zimo had always had insight into Emo Chun. The Hexagenesis immortal formation of the Emo Imperial clan was a gift from Emo Chun to Su Zimo. Speaking of Emo Chun, his background wasn't great, he even had a rather tragic past. To grow stronger, his cultivation path was very different from others. The Hexagenesis immortal formation, left behind by the Formation Emperor, once shocked the entire primordial heartlands. It was hailed as the peak of formation techniques. Emo Chun used his own body as the vessel for formations, making the Hexagenesis immortal formation his core, with countless other formations as auxiliary. His entire body was inscribed with formations. One glance revealed countless arrays. With a wave of his hand, thousands activated, he was practically a walking formation array. Watching the two stand on the arena, the audience was filled with anticipation. Su Zimo handed the task of burying the crystals to Monk Great Wisdom and stayed to watch the match. Primordius, please advise. Primordius stepped onto the stage with a light smile. His presence was powerful yet unworldly, like a traveler outside of reality, free from all karma, beholden to nothing, carefree and unrestrained. Emo Chun raised his hand, and dozens of formations instantly activated. Explosions rang out inside his body, defense formations, attack formations, even healing ones were all present. He rushed at Primordius with incredible speed, his figure transforming into a stream of light in space. Primordius slightly lifted his eyelids and slowly raised his right hand. With a loud boom, their arms collided fiercely. Chapter 806 Primordius has the Tao. At that moment, with a loud boom, an endless force dispersed in all directions. The two figures collided head-on, neither giving an inch. Teleportation formation, Emo Chun shouted, unleashing a fierce tiger formation. On his right fist, a tiger-shaped flame shadow appeared, roaring as it charged toward Primordius. Supreme Primal possesses the Tao follows nature, Primordius murmured lightly. A mist of clear energy spread around him, enveloping his body. This clear energy couldn't be grasped or touched. It existed and yet did not. With its enhancement, all of Primordius' attributes improved. His movements became more ethereal, agile, and precise, always finding the weakest points in Emo Chun's attacks. After a long battle, the two were still evenly matched. Emo Chun clearly became anxious and unleashed countless formations, covering the entire arena. Wind and thunder changed colors. Fire mixed with floods surged violently. On Primordius' side, he remained calm, responding methodically. After fighting for a long time, Emo Chun began to pant slightly, showing signs of exhaustion. He let out a low cry, and behind him, a massive formation phantom unfolded. This formation was hexagonal, its phantom expanding gradually, filled with countless rotating formation seals. Endless attributes and powers surged from within. Is that his true fate? Someone murmured, staring at the formation. This guy was completely obsessed with formations. Not only had he carved formations across his body, but even his true fate and soul were formations. Born into the Mo imperial clan, descendants of the Formation Emperor, he was perhaps even crazier than the Emperor himself. "Look closely at that formation," someone said from below. When the True Fate formation first appeared, most hadn't realized anything. But as it evolved, many people's eyes changed. "That's the Hexagenesis Immortal Formation," someone said in surprise. "The one known as the pinnacle of formations. This guy actually—" "Now this is getting interesting," someone chuckled. On the arena, Primordius furrowed his brow, sensing an ominous feeling from the formation. He waved his right hand, and with the flowing clear chi around him, charged toward Emo-chan, intending to disrupt the formation. "Myriad trapping formations," Emo-chan growled coldly. Numerous trapping formations erupted around him, blocking Primordius. There were forest demon formations, withered wood formations, heaven river water formations. Countless formations surged forth in an instant, preventing Primordius from advancing. The next moment, the Hexagenesis Immortal Formation activated, covering the entire arena and trapping Primordius inside. "It's over," someone said below. The Vice Lord of Supreme Primal Sacred Ground sat nearby, not overly concerned, but his brows were tightly furrowed, clearly deep in thought. "Vice Lord Fu, seems like your sect's disciple is about to lose," someone said. Fu Zexu smiled and replied, "Keep watching." Those trapped in the Hexagenesis Immortal Formation basically had no way out. That was its terrifying strength. It could only be broken from the outside, not the inside. "Concede," Emo-chan said coldly as his figure appeared in the formation. "Can't deny, you're the toughest opponent I've met," Primordius smiled. His long hair was entirely white, like drifting snow. Even his eyebrows were white, and his eyes were clear, seeming to sparkle with light. "Given that, out of respect for you, I should go all out." Emo-chan frowned slightly, watching Primordius raise his right hand as countless meteors fell from the sky. In this Hexagenesis Immortal Formation, he could be called the god of this realm. From the 8 trigrams to the 5 elements and yin-yang, everything was set up by him. He could manipulate any aspect of it. Primordius has no form, nameless and without shape. From one came the beginning, yet it had no shape. Primordius is the root of the Tao. Primordius means the first manifestation of energy. Primordius recited softly. In that moment, his aura changed drastically. The carefree and easygoing demeanor vanished without a trace. In its place was a boundless, overwhelming force that emanated from his body. The sky seemed to tear open, a beam of purple light shining down on him. At that moment, his eyes turned purple. His skin grew paler and flawless, without a wrinkle. He no longer seemed human, he was perfect and transcendent. Primordial energy emerges. This is Primordius. It means the energy is vast and the source of all things. Before heaven and earth were divided, the primordial energy was unified, and that is Primordius. As Primordius' voice fell, he resembled a god high above the 9 heavens, majestic and untouchable. A mere glance from him carried supreme authority, making one feel suffocated. "If your formation were the complete Hexagenesis Immortal Formation, I might fear you. But the one you've manifested from your true fate is still lacking," Primordius said calmly. "What do you mean?" Emo-chan frowned. Primordius pointed with his right hand, and a stream of purple energy shot out, blowing open a gap in one corner of the formation. Although the formation quickly repaired the breach, the change shocked Emo-chan to his core. The Hexagenesis Immortal Formation had been broken from the inside. Not just Emo-chan, even the spectators could barely believe it. "That's insanely strong," Sword Monarch exclaimed. "It is powerful, but Emo-chan's Hexagenesis Immortal Formation isn't complete. So it's not too surprising it was broken," Suzumo said. "What do you mean by that, Holy Son?" Sword Monarch asked in confusion. "To be precise, a complete Hexagenesis Immortal Formation requires a formation disc, countless seals, rare treasures, and even multiple people working together to set it up. Just setting it once could drain an entire sect's resources. It's that demanding, Su Zimo explained. But look at Emo-chan. He set it up just by evolving his true fate. Do you think that's normal? Now that you say it like that, Sword Monarch frowned, thinking. You mean there's something wrong with his formation? Not exactly, Su Zimo shook his head. He fused the formation with his true fate. The advantage is that he doesn't need the manpower or resources. He can evolve it from his own true fate. But the downside is also clear. The formation is now one with his soul. It's no longer a complete formation. It's a growing one. The stronger his true fate, the stronger the formation he can form. I get it, Sword Monarch suddenly realized. You mean if someone's power far exceeds his, they can just brute force break it. Chapter 807 Great Battle at the Palace. You're not wrong to understand it that way, Su Zimo said with a smile. Take the complete Hexagenesis immortal formation for example. The stronger the person setting up the formation, the more powerful it becomes. Can the formation set by a God Meridian cultivator compare with one set by a Grand Emperor? Even if it's the same formation, different people setting it up will naturally result in differences in many aspects. Hearing Su Zimo's words, Sword Monarch nodded slightly. He felt that coming to the Martial Heaven tournament this time, he not only witnessed the strength of the younger generation but also gained a lot of insight. The Hexagenesis immortal formation is indeed the pinnacle of formation techniques, but it also depends on who sets it up. Both are at the peak of the God Meridian, yet Primordius is so much stronger, Sword Monarch remarked. With the Primordius physique, being stronger than others in the same realm is quite normal, Su Zimo said with a smile. Among cultivators of the same realm, many factors influence their combat power, such as the cultivation techniques they practice, the strength of their fate souls, and so on. But since they are all key disciples of imperial lineages, any shortcomings in those areas can be compensated. Only the battle body is an unstable variable. It significantly enhances one's power. The fourth battle body, the Primordius physique. Sword Monarch said with envy. I lost to Li Mubai before. He also has the 100 Arms battle physique, right? At this, Su Qingshan sighed and said, Since you cultivate the way of the sword, among our true martial sacred ground, there is actually a battle body most suitable for you. The founder, Jin Wu, was quite generous. He left behind his true martial sword physique in the sect. But unfortunately, it's already been claimed by the Sacred Lord. I know, Sword Monarch nodded and said, if you could become our holy son, maybe you'd have a chance at obtaining the true martial sword physique, Su Qingshan said. As for Emoer, let's not talk about him. Even Xiang Qianheng has the upper hand over you. Being the holy son of the true martial sacred ground isn't easy. But as a man in this world, who doesn't want to live freely, make a name that lasts through the ages, and live a bold life, Sword Monarch replied, that's why your path is still long, and everyone's opportunities are different. Su Qingshan comforted, whatever choice you eventually make, as long as you don't regret it, it's fine. On the arena, the two were still fighting, but it was clear that Emo-chan was being completely suppressed. With a single palm strike from Primordius, wind and thunder stirred. The entire arena shattered, forming countless cracks like a spiderweb. The Hexagenesis immortal formation was directly destroyed, and Emo-chan's body was sent flying. He crashed heavily to the side, stood up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and held his chest. Concede. I've already held back, Primordius said calmly. Emo-chan's expression changed several times. In the end, he took a deep breath and said to the referee on the side, I concede. He could still fight, but Emo-chan knew he couldn't win. With the top 16 matches finished, the final 8 were decided. The 8 were Bailey Xiao, Primordius, Xiang Qianheng, Qi Shui, Li Mubai, Tian Mozi, Shenyuan Xiantian, and Xian Linger. Among them, apart from Xian Linger, who was from the first-class Immortal Spirit sect, and Li Mubai, who was a rogue cultivator, the other 6 were all from imperial lineages. This is what people mean when they say it's hard for the poor to rise to high positions. The resources and vision are different. Most rogue cultivators end up ordinary. Even those with talent cannot compare with these holy sons. The top 8 battle was set to begin immediately. Just before it started, a sudden explosion echoed from the distance. This drew everyone's attention. A mushroom cloud rose in the distance, followed by a loud voice. Someone has broken into the Heaven Genesis microcosm. The Bailey Imperial clan's patriarch, Bailey Chungfeng, slowly stood up from his seat. He didn't rush over, because in his perception, the intruder had already broken through the seal of the small world, and was heading this way. "Who is it, so bold?" someone whispered, daring to forcefully enter the Bailey Imperial clan's domain. Everyone looked up, and saw that the distant sky had changed color. A group of people was flying toward them, the sheer number pressing down like a dark cloud. "They're coming," said the monk Great Wisdom. "Let's just watch the show," Su Zimo said. The leader of the group was Gong Yuner. She wore a blue robe, noble and elegant. Behind her followed 13 people in black robes, old and young alike, but all of them carried powerful auras. Clearly, they were not ordinary people. "Who are you?" The Bailey Imperial clan head frowned and asked. "No need to be angry, Patriarch, and everyone else. Don't be nervous." Gong Yuner slowly landed and smiled. "I just heard the once-in-a-century Martial Heaven tournament is being held here. As a member of the Eastern Continent, I was curious and came to take a look." "You still haven't answered me? Who are you?" The Bailey Imperial clan head frowned again. The Bailey Imperial clan elder beside him seemed impatient. He flew up directly and tried to suppress Gong Yuner. At that moment, one of the 13 black-robed people behind Gong Yuner, an old man, stepped forward to intercept the Bailey elder midair. With a wave of his right hand, he suddenly grew dozens of centimeters taller like an eagle. His speed was extremely fast. Before the elder could react, his throat was pierced. Blood dripped down, and the Bailey elder's corpse was hung high in the air. Seeing this, those around all frowned slightly. Clearly, the visitors were hostile. "You've disrupted the Martial Heaven tournament that's opposing the entire Eastern Continent," Bailey Chungfeng said coldly. He didn't say just the Bailey Imperial clan, but involved the whole Eastern Continent. He didn't believe she dared to go that far. "Patriarch, you misunderstand. I only want to watch the Martial Heaven tournament and see if there's anyone worthy of my attention," Gong Yuner said. "How does that count as disrupting the tournament?" "You!" Bailey Chungfeng shouted angrily. "The tournament has its own rules. How can you meddle?" "That's right. Which faction are you from, daring to interfere in the Martial Heaven tournament?" Someone else stepped forward. They added, "Even the Middle Continent doesn't have that right." Despite the angry voices all around, Gong Yuner remained calm. She raised her hand and smiled. "Why don't we make a bet?" "What bet?" Bailey Chungfeng frowned. "I'll participate in the Martial Heaven tournament. If I win first place, everyone here must promise me one thing," Gong Yuner said. "If I lose, I'll leave immediately and won't interfere in anything." "What a joke!" Someone nearby laughed. "Ridiculous. That's a bet? Lose and just walk away." "Then let me be more direct," Gong Yuner said without getting angry. "I lose, I leave, and I spare everyone here. How about that?" Chapter 808 Battle Against Young Geniuses of Eastern Continent. As Gong Yuner finished speaking, the scene immediately erupted. Spare everyone's lives? For everyone present, this sounded like a joke. Every one of them was an important figure from imperial lineages. Grand elders, vice lords, even sacred lords. They usually held high positions, lofty and revered, with others fawning over them. "Little girl, do you even know what you're saying?" Someone said indifferently. "You people probably haven't figured out your situation yet. This isn't your imperial lineage territory," Gong Yuner said with a smile as she clapped her hands. The next moment, the entire Heaven Genesis microcosm began to shake. From the place where the monk Great Wisdom had buried spirit crystals, 7 beams of light shot into the sky. They surged toward the heavens, and rumbling sounds echoed all around. A strange force spread out across the area. Wherever this force reached, space itself became sealed. It was like everything had turned to stone, the surface covered by a layer of solidified energy. What's this? The various lineage members frowned and looked uneasy upon seeing the scene. The space had been locked, which meant they were now isolated and couldn't contact the outside world. The most troubling part was how these people managed to do this silently and without notice. What exactly do you want? Bailey Chengfeng's frown deepened. I already said it, my condition from earlier, Gong Yuner replied with a smile. I'll enter the Martial Heaven tournament and challenge all the young geniuses of the Eastern continent. I don't have time to play games with you, Bailey Chengfeng snorted coldly. His aura flared up. Blue spirit force surged around his right fist as he punched at the sealed space beside him. He tried to forcibly break open the space with power. But just as his attack landed, one of the black-robed men behind Gong Yuner moved at lightning speed and blocked in front of him. Patriarch, if you don't mind, how about I play with you instead? The black-robed man said with a light chuckle. His aura was just as overwhelming, making hearts tremble. Bailey Chengfeng's gaze narrowed. Just as the situation grew tenser and the air heavy with pressure, the sky above Heaven Genesis microcosm twisted. An old man in a green robe stepped out of the void. What a lively scene, the old man said with a chuckle. Greetings, Ancestor Yuelong. Bailey Chengfeng quickly greeted. Ancestor Yuelong, he's one of Grand Emperor Chongkong's war generals, someone remarked. Did he come from outside? But isn't the space sealed? No, this Martial Heaven tournament is too important. There can't be any mistakes. I think Ancestor Yuelong has been watching from the shadows all along, just never revealed himself. The crowd murmured among themselves, but with Yuelong's appearance, everyone began to feel more at ease. As one of the few ancestors of the Bailey family, Ancestor Yuelong had a strong reputation. Seeing Yuelong appear, Gong Yuner didn't panic. My Bailey Imperial clan may have been quiet for a long time, but has it come to the point where we can be humiliated so easily? Bailey Yuelong said flatly. Senior, please don't be angry. This junior had no choice, Gong Yuner said. How about I let our ancestor from the otherworldly Zenith Palace speak with you? As soon as she said that, the void beside her rippled, and an old man in black appeared in front of her. The man looked ordinary with no visible aura, but the pressure he gave off was immense. Fellow Taoist, why don't I spar with you a bit? The black-robed elder said with a smile. We from the otherworldly Zenith Palace have come here with sincerity and hope that everyone will cooperate. Otherwise, we may be forced to do things you won't like. Ancestor Yuelong snorted and reached out to grab the man. But the black-robed elder wasn't about to back down. Their palms collided midair. The previously sealed space cracked, and booming explosions echoed everywhere. Don't struggle, the black-robed elder said. Let me make this clear. If we truly start fighting, those outside will wipe out your Bailey Imperial clan first. You're declaring war on the entire Eastern continent, Bailey Yuelong said with an ugly expression. He could feel that the other's strength wasn't inferior to his, perhaps even more profound. We wouldn't have come here if we weren't fully prepared. We're not afraid of your retaliation. What's the point in saying all this now? The black-robed elder sneered. I'll give you all 3 minutes to decide, Gong Yuner said lightly with a smile. Will I slaughter everyone in Bailey City today, leaving you all dead here? Or will you accept my proposal and let me compete in the Martial Heaven tournament? If I lose, I'll leave immediately. Upon hearing this, the crowd buzzed with discussion. They didn't doubt Gong Yuner's words. Her side had clearly come prepared and didn't fear any of them. Then let the Martial Heaven tournament decide, someone said angrily. Our Eastern continent is full of talent and geniuses. Are we supposed to fear just one person? That's right. She talks big. I want to see how strong she really is. Even those holy sons from the Middle Continent aren't all that. What's there to fear? The voices grew louder and louder until Bailey Chengfeng raised his hand, quieting the crowd. After all, the Bailey Imperial clan was the host of this Martial Heaven tournament. the final decision rested with them. If everyone has no objections, then I'll temporarily change the rules, Bailey Chengfeng said. Any young cultivator from the Eastern continent may participate in the Martial Heaven tournament. Whoever can defeat her will be crowned the tournament's champion. Hearing this, the young people present grew excited. This was a golden opportunity to make a name for themselves. But they didn't lose their heads. They all looked at Gong Yuner as she walked up to the arena. She was challenging the entire Eastern continent's younger generation, alone. How much courage and confidence did that take? Who says women are weaker than men? Someone murmured. To avoid you using wave tactics and to save time, Gong Yuner said, you should pick the 10 strongest among your young generation to fight me. How about that? After all, there were too many young people present. She couldn't fight them one by one. That would take forever. Give us a moment to discuss, Bailey Chengfeng said with a frown. Bailey Chengfeng gathered the leaders of several major imperial lineages to discuss. What do you all think? Bailey Chengfeng asked. Whether her words are trustworthy or not is still unclear. An elder from the Qi imperial clan said, we should prepare for both outcomes. Even if she loses the match, what if she goes back on her word? Chapter 809, Defeating 3 Opponents. What Elder Qi said makes sense. The Mo imperial clan patriarch nodded and said, we should stabilize them through the competition while figuring out a way to send a message out for reinforcements from our lineages. But with the space sealed, getting a message out is nearly impossible, Bailey Chengfeng sighed. I may have a way, the elder from the Dan imperial clan said after a moment of silence. Our Dan imperial clan has a divided soul pill. As the name implies, it separates the body and soul, allowing the soul to exist independently. The soul can travel through the void, unaffected by their spatial lock. There's such a pill? Bailey Chengfeng said with surprise. I can use it to leave my body and seek reinforcements. But the problem is, during that time you must protect my body. The Dan elder nodded. If my body is damaged, my soul will vanish as well. Don't worry, Elder Dan. We'll protect your body with our lives if we have to, the Qi imperial clan head assured. But even with this plan, we still need to buy time. Who should we send into battle as the 10? The 8 who made it to the quarterfinals should be eligible, Bailey Chengfeng said. As for the other 2, Vice Lord Su, your lineage's holy son should be able to participate. He is considered the number 1 among the Eastern continent's younger generation. And there's the holy son of the Myriad Beast sect, Kuang Qianshan. Let those 10 represent us. I have no objection, Su Qingshan said, shaking his head. Once everything was decided, Bailey Chengfeng stepped forward and announced the list of 10. Hearing his name mentioned, Su Zimo looked slightly surprised, but it wasn't out of his expectations. Who will go first? Gong Yuner stood calmly on the arena and asked. The 10 exchanged glances, but no one rushed forward. They knew nothing about Gong Yuner and didn't want to fight blindly. It was better to observe a few matches first. I'll go first, Kuang Qianshan said impatiently and flew onto the stage. I'll fight you. His muscles bulged like a humanoid beast. When he landed, the arena trembled. With a roar, he charged at Gong Yuner with his fists raised. His roar resembled that of a beast, and the image of a tiger flickered over his fists. Plenty of strength, but lacking speed. Gong Yuner shook her head slightly. In the next instant, her figure flashed and appeared behind Kuang Qianshan. She grabbed his clothes lightly and tossed him away with what seemed like minimal force. Kuang Qianshan got up and roared again. His true fate appeared, countless spirit beasts and fierce beasts roaring around him. The myriad beast's body meant gathering the power of many beasts into one. The moment the beasts appeared, the sky trembled, and roars echoed. Impressive true fate. But that's all. Gong Yuner shook her head. Broad but shallow. You rely too much on superficial strength. As the beasts charged at her, Gong Yuner remained calm. She slowly raised her hand. A ghostly aura gathered in her palm. Netherworld's soul-severing palm, she said softly. From the aura, It was as if 10,000 ghosts emerged and collided with Kuang Qianshan. Boom! A muffled sound echoed as Kuang Qianshan was blasted backward. In a pure strength clash he had lost. Kuang Qianshan stared blankly at the scene before him. Next, Gong Yuner dusted off her robe. Her clothes were still perfectly neat. She had won easily. I'll go. Xiang Qianheng stepped onto the stage. His aura was intense, surrounded by a black mist. This was the Overlord Flame he practiced, an extremely tyrannical technique suited for naturally dominant individuals. With a cold snort, Xiang Qianheng covered himself in black spirit force and charged forward, fist raised. Gong Yuner smiled and met his punch head-on. The two exchanged blows with no technique, just pure strength. Bang! 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 Echoes rang across the arena. Gradually, Xiang Qianheng began to struggle and had to unleash his true fate. It was a shadowy figure. Legend had it that the Overlord Flame was passed down from the Tyrant Overlord. The true fate it formed was the Overlord Shadow. With the Shadow's emergence, Xiang Qianheng's pressure eased significantly. But the spectators felt no joy. Gong Yuner still hadn't shown her true fate. Competing with me in dominance? Gong Yuner chuckled. Suddenly, dragon roars rang out from around her. Dragon shadows coiled around her body. Reverse Dragon 7 steps. Gong Yuner snorted. With each step, a dragon shadow became real. Roars echoed, and a storm brewed. By her second step, a great dragon spiraled above her, facing off against the Overlord. This woman actually cultivates such a domineering meridian technique, someone whispered. With each step of the reverse dragon 7 steps, the power increased unimaginably. By the 5th step, Xiang Qianheng could barely hold on. The pressure made it hard for him to breathe. Sweat poured from his forehead, and his blood vessels looked like they would burst. His veins bulged, and his eyes turned blood red. Just as Gong Yuner was about to take her 6th step, Su Qingshan stood up and shouted, "Enough, we concede." Losing the match wasn't the issue, but Xiang Qianheng had been groomed carefully by the lineage and might be a future sacred lord. Su Qingshan wouldn't allow him to die here. Next, Gong Yuner smiled, and her aura vanished. Xiang Qianheng collapsed, panting, and was helped down by several disciples. Seeing two people defeated in a row, the murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Many realized they weren't any stronger than Xiang Qianheng or Kuang Qianshan, which only added to the pressure. "Mozi, you go," the elder from the Purgatory Sacred Ground said to Tian Mozi. "Do you have confidence?" "No," Tian Mozi said with a smile and walked onto the stage. It had been a while since they'd seen him, and he had matured. His long black hair hung loosely behind him, and his pupils were strangely demonic. Even his lips were black. A long saber hung at his waist as he slowly stepped onto the stage. "Now here's someone interesting," Gong Yuner said, sizing him up with a smile. "Please enlighten me," Tian Mozi said calmly. Chapter 810 The Will of 100 Weapons. "Come on," Gong Yuner said calmly. Tian Mozi slowly drew the long saber from his waist. The saber was 3 feet long, its edge razor-sharp, wrapped in a faint black demonic aura. "I'll use my strongest move. If I lose, I'll leave without further conflict," Tian Mozi said calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, a wave of demonic energy rose around him. Behind him appeared a shadow formed entirely of demonic energy. Su Zimo watched with interest. This Tian Mozi truly lived up to his name. He had become demonic. No one knew what kind of encounter he had gone through, but somehow he had joined the demon race. This type of demon was more akin to Su Zimo's lineage, not just someone who went mad from improper cultivation. Tian Mozi suddenly opened his eyes with a buzz. As if a gust of wind had passed, the demonic energy around him began to swirl. The saber in his hand trembled as if it thirsted for battle. With a gust of wind, Tian Mozi's figure turned into a stream of light in everyone's eyes. In a flash, he was already in front of Gong Yuner, his demonic blade raised high. "Slash!" Tian Mozi shouted. On his blade, countless demonic shadows emerged. The shadow behind him, his true fate, seemed ready to devour Gong Yuner whole. Gong Yuner activated Reverse Dragon 7 steps, dodging Tian Mozi's attack. Their figures moved at extreme speed, chasing and fleeing, so fast that those with lower cultivation could not even see them. Only blurred afterimages flickered in the air. Finally, when Gong Yuner had taken all 7 steps, 7 divine dragons coiled above her, and her aura was so powerful that even the sealed void began to crack. Slash! 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 By now, Tian Mozi was lost in a frenzy, eyes fixed only on Gong Yuner, wanting nothing more than to cut her down. His mind was empty of distractions, completely focused. Finally, as the divine dragons collided with the demonic blade, a loud boom echoed. The arena beneath them shattered into pieces. The divine dragon above Gong Yuner's head let out a mournful cry and was blasted away. Tian Mozi stood in place, panting, as clarity returned to his eyes. Looking at the knocked-back Gong Yuner, he sighed and said, "I've lost." Gong Yuner slowly stood up and looked at her robe. A cut had been made across it by the blade. She looked at Tian Mozi's retreating figure, her eyes slightly narrowing. Why did he admit defeat? Didn't he have the upper hand? Someone below asked in confusion. It looked like Tian Mozi had clearly won that exchange. The momentum of a demonic blade is strong at first, then wanes, Su Zimo said calmly. Tian Mozi used all his strength on that one strike and only managed to knock Gong Yuner back. He wouldn't have the same power for a second strike, and she hasn't even used her true fate. What's the point in continuing? Hearing Su Zimo's explanation, those nearby finally understood. In just moments, 3 had already lost. Everyone was unsettled. Who was this mysterious woman? No one had heard of her before. Yet the moment she appeared, she stunned everyone. Only Su Zimo watched with calm interest and quiet confidence. The people of the otherworldly Zenith Palace were clearly not simple. To explain further, one had to understand the force known as the otherworldly Zenith Palace. Their very existence was like a third hand for certain powerful individuals. There were some in the outer heavens who wanted to reach into the central lands, and the otherworldly Zenith Palace served as that third hand. Gong Yuner, as a key nurtured figure, had access to resources far beyond what imperial lineages could provide. Those beings from the outer heavens, any one of them was stronger than the imperial lineages. Su Zimo had some idea of their intentions. In his past life, he had been just a side character and couldn't get close to them. Now, with his second chance at life, things were playing out again. But this time, Su Zimo, would call the shots. If they dared stretch their hand in, he wouldn't just break that hand, he'd crush their heads. On the stage, Gong Yuner's cold voice rang out again. Next. Of the remaining 7, except for Su Zimo, all were silent. Most of them knew they weren't much stronger than Tian Mozi or Xiang Qianheng. Stepping up would only lead to humiliation. What? Are these the so-called geniuses of the Eastern continent? Gong Yuner laughed lightly. I'll go. Li Mubai yawned lazily and strolled up to the stage. All these holy sons and daughters, and none have more guts than a rogue cultivator. Gong Yuner mocked. I know I'm impressive, but don't praise me too soon. Li Mubai waved his hand. You might feel awkward when I beat you in a moment. If you have the skill, I'll accept it, Gong Yuner replied. Li Mubai smiled, but his eyes were serious. He didn't dare be careless. He activated his 100 weapons battle physique. At that moment, he looked like a walking weapon. Sometimes a blade, sharp and fierce. Sometimes a sword, with imposing sword intent. Sometimes a spear, piercing the heavens. The 100 weapons battle physique could manifest endless weapons. Blades, spears, staves, axes, halberds, whips. He seemed to become them all. Even the weapons of those watching seemed drawn toward him. They buzzed, as if wanting to fly from their sheaths. Li Mubai raised his hand, and countless sword auras filled the sky. With another wave, an inferno of blade intent surged like a sea, enveloping the void. A spear appeared in the air, buzzing softly, as if it would pierce the sky and shatter the heavens. "Kill!" Li Mubai shouted coldly. In his eyes, countless weapons took form. The blade intent, sword energy, and spear shadows all rushed at Gong Yuner. Seeing this, Gong Yuner quickly formed hand seals. Fourfold seal. Her hands spun and wove together. Forest phantom, silver feather, shocking heaven, immortal break. The four seals fused into one, forming a domain around her. In this domain, Gong Yuner was like a deity. Every weapon that approached her was instantly annihilated, vanishing without a trace. To face a battle physique head-on, what kind of meridian technique is this? Someone murmured in awe. Li Mubai also looked serious. He realized that no matter how many weapon forms he conjured, they would all be crushed by her domain. If that's the case, I'll break it with force. Let's see if your domain is stronger than my 100 weapons battle physique. Li Mubai growled. He slowly raised both hands, and his aura soared even higher. The will of 100 weapons, came a furious roar. An endless surge of intent exploded from within him. Chapter 811 Bailey Xiao vs. Gong Yuner. The will of 100 weapons, an intent that embodies the essence of all weapons, representing the ultimate in armaments. Ordinary people could never comprehend so many types of weapon intent. Only those with the 100 weapons battle physique could do so with ease. Endless weapon intents gathered in the sky. It was hard to imagine the sheer power this force contained. As more and more weapons converged, the force in the sky grew increasingly immense and overwhelming. Felt like it could punch a hole through the heavens. Seeing this formation, Gong Yuner smiled slightly and got serious. She began forming the fourfold seal again, with 4 different seals floating slowly in her palms. Then she clapped her hands, and more fourfold seals surged out. These seals fused into her domain, strengthening it further and increasing the oppressive pressure. When the will of 100 weapons reached its peak in Li Mubai's hands, a loud boom rang out, and the sealed space around them finally cracked under the pressure. "Kill!" Li Mubai shouted, his entire body emanating a killing edge, like a bloodthirsty divine weapon. The force gathered above his head slashed downward in a massive wave. Along its path, the sealed void shattered, a testament to its power. "Well done!" Gong Yuner snorted coldly. Her domain of fourfold seals expanded, filled with countless floating imprints. As the domain spread out, it also shattered the locked space. When the will of 100 weapons collided with the domain, the world seemed to freeze for an instant. Then came a blast louder than anything heard before. A mushroom cloud shot into the sky. The shockwave alone sent many god meridian cultivators flying. The diamond-forged arena was completely destroyed. Dust filled the air, the ground shook, and many had ringing in their ears, their minds left dazed. "We probably won, right?" someone asked uncertainly. Everyone looked toward the center of the blast. As the dust settled, faint spirit force still lingered. She, someone stammered, looking ahead. At the center of the domain, Gong Yuner was kneeling on one knee. Aside from her slightly messy hair, she had no visible injuries. Her domain still held protective energy around her. On the other hand, Li Mubai's strength had been completely exhausted. His battle physique had entered a weakened state, and sweat dripped from his forehead. Also kneeling, his eyes were blankly staring at the ground. "Bring him back," Bailey Changfeng sighed. "It's clear he's lost and has no strength left to fight." Gong Yuner slowly stood up. Her previous battle had loosened her hair bun. As she rose, her long jet-black hair fell behind her. She casually tied it into a long braid and slung it behind her. With a calm gaze sweeping the surroundings, she said, "Next." Everyone looked at each other. Many were now thinking of backing out. At this point, stepping up meant nothing but humiliation. "Primordius, talk it over with Shower and decide who'll go," Bailey Changfeng said from the side. "It's meaningless for the others to continue." After speaking, Bailey Changfeng glanced at Su Zimo and asked, "Young Master Su, any thoughts?" As the host, It's only fitting for your Bailey Imperial Clan Saintess to go, Su Zimo replied. Then I'll go, Bailey Xiao said coldly, giving Su Zimo a glance before walking onto the arena step by step. A battle between two women, especially ones at this level, got everyone's attention. Bailey Xiao walked step by step, her white dress fluttering in the breeze. With each step, her aura grew stronger. By the time she reached Gong Yuner, her presence was unstoppable. I'll give you 10 minutes to rest, so no one says I won unfairly, Bailey Xiao said calmly. Gong Yuner wasn't angered by her words. Instead, she nodded and sat cross-legged. I only need 5 minutes. Clearly, the previous fight had cost her a lot, and Bailey Xiao's pressure was something else entirely. Such kindness from a woman. Someone below commented regretfully. She should have just fought. What's the point of saving face? Strong ones have their pride, especially these prodigies. They're all extremely arrogant. Of course, they wouldn't want to win dishonorably, another explained. Su Qingshan watched the scene and turned to Su Zimo with a smile. Son, how's this Martial Heaven tournament been for you? Not bad, Su Zimo nodded. At least it gave me insight into the strength of the Eastern continent. These are the ones I'll compete with for Heaven's will in the future. If you were to fight them, how confident are you? Su Qingshan asked again. Let the tides of greatness rise and fall. I'll suppress the 5 continents with one hand and shake the heavens with a snap, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. They're still beneath me. You're too confident, Su Qingshan reminded. With great power comes great confidence, Su Zimo replied with a smile. Gong Yuner slowly opened her eyes and exhaled a breath of white mist. She stood and said, Let's begin. Bailey Xiao didn't say anything. Her nature was cold and quiet. Her figure radiated overwhelming presence as she raised her right hand to strike at Gong Yuner. Spirit force surged around both women as they clashed. Every move they made seemed to return to the essence of combat, stripping down to pure technique. Gong Yuner used reverse dragon 7 steps, combined with the netherworld soul-severing palm and fourfold seal. Half the sky looked ready to collapse under her blows. Bailey Xiao moved like a graceful celestial maiden, descending from the heavens. Not only was it visually stunning, but her aura was powerful like a rainbow piercing the sun. Explosions echoed around them. They fought from the ground to the sky, stepping through the air, flashing from south to north. Their silhouettes danced across the sky. One blast after another shook the heavens, and the void occasionally tore apart. After fighting for more than 10 minutes, the two finally separated and stared at each other. At this rate, who knows how long this will go on, Gong Yuner said calmly. Let's use our true fates. As she spoke, the scenery around them began to shift. A purple spiritual aura shot up from behind Gong Yuner, dyeing the sky. Starlight fell as a starry sky surrounded them. Radiant light, firefly spark, celestial garden, high sovereign, imperial chariot, world overseer. With each name Gong Yuner chanted, a corresponding star lit up brilliantly in the sky. East Chancellor, Northfall Gate. 8 great stars blazed in the heavens. Chapter 812 Myriad Immortals Domain. This was a true fate of the stars. It represented 8 supreme stars, each one dazzling beyond comparison, each one possessing boundless stellar power. Gong Yuner's true fate was a star chart with the 8 strongest stars revolving around it. The other stars could only serve as substitutes, dim and insignificant. The moment the star chart appeared, Gong Yuner's entire body was filled with unending starlight energy. Bailey Xiao's gaze was cold as she looked at it. Then, behind her, a beam of light shot into the sky. A phantom slowly emerged from behind her. It stood shrouded in mist, its appearance completely obscured. One could only vaguely make out a woman in a purple dress. This woman seemed to have crossed the river of time itself, descending from the ancient past. Her aura was vast and overwhelming, surrounded by sun, moon, and stars. Just her gaze made it hard to breathe. This phantom was Bailey Xiao's true fate. It was also the first time she had revealed it publicly. Do you know what that is? Su Qingshan asked Su Zimo. It's strange. I can't quite explain it, Su Zimo said, frowning slightly. That phantom is the true body of the Jade Purity Immortal from her previous life, Su Qingshan explained. Interesting, Su Zimo smiled. He knew that Bailey Zhao's past life was the Jade Purity Immortal, First War General of the Grand Empress. He hadn't expected her to use her past self as her true fate. So Bailey Zhao has also touched the River of Time, Su Zimo murmured. Who do you favor? Su Qingshan asked. I can't say. Su Zimo shook his head. Their trump cards haven't been revealed yet. Who knows how much they're still hiding. Bailey Zhao's true fate is indeed stunning, but those 8 stars aren't weak either. Those 8 stars are evolving into a cosmic star ocean, with great potential for the future. Meanwhile, on the other side, the people from the otherworldly Zenith Palace were no longer as composed as before. Ancestor, do you think the young palace mistress can handle it? Someone asked the black-robed elder nervously. If you ask me, we shouldn't have even bothered with the Martial Heaven tournament. Just take them down and stop wasting time. You don't understand. Yunar has her pride. She knew the Martial Heaven tournament was full of geniuses, like a dragon's den or tiger's lair. Yet she still chose to face it alone. She's honing her Tao heart, the elder said with a smile. After the God Meridian, the higher you go, the less it's about just cultivation. Tao heart and comprehension become more important. The road is still long. On the arena, the two stood facing each other. There was no sun in the sky, though the barrier of the Heaven Genesis microcosm blocked the snowfall from outside. It was still bitterly cold. A cold wind howled from the distance, carrying dust and vanishing again. Star pluck, Gong Yunar said softly. She reached into the star chart behind her, and in the next moment, a star was pulled out. It sparkled brilliantly, turning into a stream of light and fusing into her body. A star mark appeared on her forehead. This star was Radiant Light. The Star of Radiant Light, also known as the Star of the Piercing Army, had a destructive force rarely seen in the world. As the starlight flickered, Gong Yunar's figure vanished into the void, and in the next instant, she attacked Bailey Zhao. Bailey Zhao slowly raised her hand, and as she did, the phantom behind her also raised its hand. With a loud boom, their powers clashed. Gong Yunar's figure was blasted away. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and she pulled out the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stars from her chart. Firefly Spark, Celestial Garden, High Sovereign. The Fire Star, the Beast Star, the Royal Star. These were the meanings they embodied. As the 3 stars fused into her body, 3 different symbols appeared on her limbs. Her aura grew even stronger. Her speed became light itself, nearly impossible to follow with the naked eye. A giant palm fell, with stars swirling in its center, raining endless starlight. As the palm descended, Bailey Zhao's phantom braced itself, and the giant palm was instantly annihilated. At this moment, purple aura surged around Bailey Zhao, crackling with explosive sounds. The phantom behind her slowly stepped forward. Each step seemed to tug on the grand Tao of heaven and earth. Myriad Immortals Domain, Bailey Zhao said softly. The phantom raised both hands, and waves of purple domain energy spread out in all directions. The entire arena was covered. Within this immortal domain, endless purple light burst forth like a falling galaxy, with countless images evolving within it. Immortals riding cranes, children guiding the way, elders climbing mountains, heavenly emperors ascending the throne. Countless visions spread across the ground, and Bailey Zhao's figure vanished into the domain. In an instant, the surrounding spirit force dispersed like mist, and the images came to life. An elder leaned on a cane and walked past. The earth split open into a chasm 10,000 feet deep. The cane flew from the sky, and Gong Yunar quickly raised her arms to block. Boom! The energy wave burst out, sending Gong Yunar flying. Myriad Immortals Domain, why does that name sound familiar? Someone in the crowd asked in surprise. Isn't that the technique created by the Grand Empress herself? Someone else said excitedly. Legend has it that the Grand Empress once saw paintings of the myriad immortals and comprehended this move. During the battle for heaven's will, the immortals ascended, illusions became real, many died to this technique. People all around were discussing it. After all, this move only existed in the Grand Empress's era. Since her ascension, no one in the true martial sacred ground had ever learned it again. Inside the domain, illusions of immortals and celestial children unfolded. One celestial child pointed down from the sky. The land fractured, mountains and rivers crumbled. The entire Heaven Genesis microcosm began to shake. Gong Yuner didn't even have time to resist. She was engulfed in the domain. Patriarch Bailey, congratulations. Someone nearby began flattering Bailey Chengfeng. With Saintess Bailey's strength, she's a future Grand Emperor for sure. Yes, yes indeed. Bailey Chengfeng smiled and waved his hand. Let's not be careless. The opponent isn't that simple. Everyone should keep watching closely. Just then, within the domain, amidst the rising dust and debris, a flash of starlight burst forth. The starlight lit up the surroundings, making it impossible to look away. East Prime, came a long and clear voice. As the starlight pierced through the dust, Gong Yuner slowly stepped out from within. She was surrounded by swirling starlight, her stars more condensed than ever. The East Prime star, one who fears nothing, who walks a lone path through the world. As the starlight flickered before them, the entire immortal domain's space froze. This was true time-stopping. Chapter 8:13. How about I give it a try? When time was frozen, all the figures of the immortals halted in place. Even Bailey Xiao couldn't move. She frowned as she looked at Gong Yuner. A star hovered above the opponent's head. Among the 8 stars, this one was different from the others. Northfall Gate and East Prime were major stars, while the rest were minor stars. East Prime's power was to freeze time in a small area. Just that one ability alone showed how extraordinary the star was. Time is such an elusive concept, always beyond reach, like a person's lifespan, slowly fading in the river of time. No one escapes it. Old age is the fate of all beings. Once time was completely halted, Gong Yuner slowly raised both hands. In that moment, starlight shone once again from her palms. From the sky above, a beam of stellar power descended, enveloping her entire body. She could draw on the power of the heavens, borrowing strength from the stars of the cosmos. The star chart behind her spun rapidly. As more starlight condensed, the radiance from Gong Yuner's hands became so bright it was blinding. Radiant strike, Gong Yuner snorted coldly. The star in her hands shot forward, aiming to suppress Bailey Xiao. The myriad immortals domain was torn open bit by bit, small rips appearing everywhere. Seeing this, someone below sighed, still not quite there. Back in the Grand Empress's time, the myriad immortals domain was divine in aura. This current purple aura doesn't measure up. As time froze and starlight magnified in front of Bailey Xiao, she moved. Her movement seemed incredibly slow, unbelievably so. But as the starlight pierced through the domain, Bailey Xiao's figure vanished to the side. No one knew what had just happened. She had broken free from the time freeze, and did so with such speed that not even afterimages were left. Even the powerful observers below had been fooled. What was that just now? Someone recalled the moment. Their expression changed slightly. Could that have been the soaring immortal physique? The soaring immortal physique, the body the Grand Empress left to the true martial sacred ground, someone said in awe. The fastest physique in existence. Not something simple like time freeze can stop. Interesting, Gong Yuner smiled. You've got some skill after all. I concede, Bailey Xiao said coldly and indifferently. Her words caused an uproar among the crowd. Even Gong Yuner frowned slightly. She hadn't gone all out yet, and she could feel her opponent hadn't used her trump cards either. To concede right after revealing the soaring immortal physique? Shower. Bailey Chengfeng's expression changed slightly as he quickly stepped forward. Why concede? The opponent is difficult to deal with. Before the fight for Heaven's will, I don't want to expose all my strength, Bailey Xiao said. Both had held back. The final outcome was still uncertain. But Bailey Xiao chose to withdraw now, unwilling to reveal her hand and be targeted during the future battle for Heaven's will. Though her reasoning made sense, Bailey Changfeng felt a flood of mixed emotions. He could sense Bailey Xiao lacked a sense of responsibility. With the clan in a life-and-death crisis, shouldn't she prioritize the present? How boring. I thought I'd finally found a worthy opponent to enjoy a good fight, Gong Yuner said calmly. The starlight behind her faded and returned to normal. Who's next? The crowd fell into silence. Even those who had been chattering earlier were speechless. If Bailey Xiao had lost, what chance did they have? A wave of despair swept through them. How about, I give it a try? At that moment, a calm voice rang out. It was like a stone dropping into a sea of despair, breaking the dead silence and sending ripples through everyone's hearts. Su Zimo was seen stepping onto the arena, one step at a time. He hadn't planned to get involved, but since Su Qingshan had asked him to try, he couldn't refuse. It's Holy Son Su. He actually stepped up at this critical moment. Isn't he the number one among the younger generation of the Eastern continent? He should be strong. He did win the 6 Holy Lands gathering, and they say he's the strongest in the Western region. But calling him number one in the Eastern continent might be a stretch, someone else countered. But from what I've heard, Bailey Xiao lost to him back then. That's not saying much. Bailey Xiao wasn't particularly remarkable at the time. She had just joined the true martial sacred ground. She only rose to fame in recent years. If they fought now, who knows who would win, right? There are too few recorded battles of Holy Sun Su in the Eastern continent, no real way to gauge. Everyone discussed animatedly, but there weren't any better options. At this point, they could only rely on Su Zimo. Su Zimo walked onto the arena with a lazy, disinterested demeanor. Gong Yuner laughed and said, I thought you wouldn't even dare to stand beside me, let alone challenge me. Not bad. In her mind, Su Zimo didn't seem particularly strong. Otherwise, back at the small courtyard, instead of agreeing to set the crystals, he would have insisted on a proper duel. At first, I thought you were going to destroy the Bailey Imperial clan, but now you're just playing games with this tournament. It's disappointing. Su Zimo shook his head and sighed. What, you want to use us as your tool? Gong Yuner smiled. I'm very fair. I said I'd let you go. But if you insist on jumping into the fire, then I'll let you make 3 moves. I'm being generous. 3 moves. Su Zimo raised his head slowly, eyes half-lidded, then flicked a finger with a trace of blade energy. The blade energy was flicked out casually, then rapidly expanded in midair, growing dozens of times in size as it slashed toward Gong Yuner. She retreated quickly, but still, rip. The blade energy tore through the air, slicing open the back of her blue robe. The back half of the robe fell away. Who do you think you're looking down on? Su Zimo stretched lazily and chuckled. Sitting down there got boring. I'll play with you a bit. Who isn't a holy son or prodigy these days? Gong Yuner regained her composure. That blade energy had come so fast she hadn't even reacted. Of course, part of it was her own carelessness. I wasn't planning to kill you, but since you insist on walking into hell, I'll make sure you're properly welcomed, Gong Yuner said coldly, her aura surging. Go ahead and show me your true fate. I'm curious, Su Zimo replied. Reverse Dragon 7 steps, Gong Yuner said without hesitation. Her figure turned into golden light and charged at Su Zimo. As her afterimage flew in, Su Zimo yawned. Then he raised his right hand and punched into the void. Chapter 814 Northfall Gate. Su Zimo's punch seemed to hit empty space. There was nothing in front of him, but as the fist landed, Gong Yuner's reverse Dragon 7 steps form really did arrive at the point of impact. With a loud crack, the time stop shattered and the void ruptured. Spirit force surged outward, and Gong Yuner flew backward. He saw through my reverse Dragon 7 steps, Gong Yuner said, surprise flashing in her eyes. Once you take the first step, the other 6 steps' trajectories are predetermined, but exactly how the first step is taken can change the path. He had predicted her second step from just one observation. After only a single look, he had seen through her prize technique. She was shaken. "You asked me to reveal my true fate, but you couldn't last a single strike." Su Zimo waved dismissively. Feeling underestimated stung Gong Yuner. "Radiant light," she spat coldly. The fate soul star chart behind her began to spread. Cosmic power from distant stars showered down. Her aura exploded, merging 5 stars: Radiant Light, Firefly Spark, Celestial Garden, High Sovereign, Imperial Chariot. She had clearly taken Su Zimo seriously. Starlight cascaded around, and ghostly star symbols appeared on her limbs and forehead. She tilted slightly, stepping back on her right foot. Before anyone could react, she reappeared to Su Zimo's right, fist blazing with concentrated starlight as she charged. Su Zimo made no move to block, letting her punch hit him squarely. The tree of life within him replenished his body. He stood motionless as her fist stalled against his chest. He cracked a smile. "Strength's not bad." Gong Yuner's eyes trembled. She felt terror in her heart. He hadn't even dodged. He had taken the blow head-on like it was nothing. What kind of freak is he? She thought. She recoiled, leaving a trail of starlight behind her. Su Zimo did nothing further. He'd fought cultivators for years. It was tough. Facing peers? Boring. Too weak. "You know what?" Su Zimo laughed. "You're so weak that I don't even feel like drawing my blade." Even the spectators gulped at this. With 5 stars strengthening her attack, Gong Yuner's full power punch would be nearly impossible to withstand, even defensively. Yet Su Zimo had done nothing. No techniques, no true fate, just an unfathomable depth of strength. His shadow blade hadn't even arced. After distancing himself, Gong Yuner exhaled deeply, sweat beading on her brow. "You shouldn't be so smug," she snorted. East Prime. From her 8 stars, 5 minor ones had been used. The 3 major ones remained. East Prime's star glowed, suspended overhead. Purple waves of power rippled outward, freezing time and space around it, even immobilizing Su Zimo. "Northfall Gate," Gong Yuner demanded next. A deep golden star erupted like a blazing sun. She chanted, "I bear 1 star, long locked by dust and toil. Today dust is gone. Light is born, illuminating 10,000 folds of land." Northfall Gate was the star of battle. It radiated invincible spirit. If watched long enough, a voice repeating "Fight! Fight! Fight!" echoed in one's mind. As it appeared, the sky dimmed. Onlookers looked up at the sudden phenomenon. Dark clouds, swirling dust, biting wind stirring unease. Then in one corner of the sky, a star shone brilliant, like a galaxy's beam crossing the heavens, illuminating half the sky before cascading onto Gong Yuner. "Kill!" she roared. Her power peaked. She leapt into motion, twin fists aimed at Su Zimo's head. The moment she soared, lightning cracked and thunder roared. Her body was the center of a spiderweb of shattered time and space. Boom! The explosion thundered. Spectators gazed in horror. What a spectacle! Most would burn that image into memory. Greatness is coming. The future might already be here. Many younger observers turned pale. To contend for heaven's will with such beings was terrifying before even fighting. It may leave a lasting shadow. As her fists fell, everyone presumed the outcome decided, but Su Zimo looked calm. As the punches neared, overwhelming in presence, Su Zimo moved, without resistance, without hesitation. His figure seemed ancient, crossing time's river, ripping through the binds of ancient stars. Effortlessly, he broke the time freeze. Gong Yuner watched in shock as their fists collided. Boom! Northfall Gate's star power was indeed formidable. Su Zimo flew backward from her impact, but it was just a casual strike from him. Despite that, Gong Yuner did not show relief. Instead, her expression grew heavy. He had broken out of East Prime's time stop. That was terrible news. Dust swirled, and the ground split into a bottomless chasm. Chapter 8:15. What a spectacle this is. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the deep pit. As the dust slowly settled, a hand appeared at the edge of the pit, and someone crawled out. Su Zimo slowly climbed out of the deep pit. Apart from being covered in a bit of dust, he didn't appear to have suffered any injuries. Gong Yunar's gaze grew increasingly heavy. Now this is interesting, Su Zimo smiled. The heaven-shattering force within him spread out, and the power vortex inside him began spinning wildly. Whether it was the vortex of his physical body or that of his soul, both were being drawn in. The phantom of a heaven-shattering giant slowly formed behind him. Seeing this, the crowd below began to stir again. Bailey Zhao's eyes flickered, lost in thought. "What is that?" someone asked. "Is that Holy Sun Su's true fate?" "I don't know. It kind of looks like it," someone replied, shaking their head. The heaven-shattering giant roared toward the sky with an awe-inspiring might, shattering the void with its roar. Su Zimo stepped back with his right foot into a diving stance and charged directly at Gong Yunar. Heaven-shattering force surged from his right fist, crashing into Gong Yunar's starlight with overwhelming force. The two weren't on the same level at all. His punch was like smashing dry weeds, sending Gong Yunar flying. Su Zimo didn't give her a chance to breathe. He closed in again, heaven-shattering force surging around him. There was no technique, just raw power at its peak. Each punch carried the force to tear apart the void. Gong Yunar was beaten without being able to retaliate, thrown across the ground several times before she barely stabilized herself. She raised her head slightly, tied her bangs back behind her head, not bothering with her now disheveled purple robe. "Since my debut until now, you're the strongest peer I've ever met, bar none," Gong Yunar said solemnly. "Compared to you, the men of our otherworldly Zenith Palace are nothing." "What are you trying to say?" Su Zimo asked. "You're the first peer who's ever seen all 8 of my stars," Gong Yunar replied. The star chart behind her began to rotate again, exuding an ancient aura, like the turning gears of fate, unstoppable by any force. "World Overseer," Gong Yunar slowly called out the name of the final star. In the southeast corner, that star slowly lit up. World Overseer resided in the darkest part of the sky but was the brightest star of all. It was extremely eye-catching. Wherever it appeared, it outshone everything. As the World Overseer star manifested, the entire star chart began to shake. Starlight glittered within it, and even the previously darkened sky began to rumble with thunder. If the original star chart had 7 stars acting independently, scattered and uncoordinated, then with the arrival of World Overseer, all 8 stars now seemed to be connected by some mysterious link. The entire star chart was now united. Starlight formed a great path between the stars, and the brilliance now was tens of times greater than before. With World Overseer and without it, they were 2 different worlds. A heaven and earth difference. It was like a button that fastened the entire star chart together. Gong Yunar's aura surged violently, and the surge wasn't stopping. "She can't handle that power," someone below immediately noticed. Though Gong Yunar was already strong, the power brought by the completed star chart was overwhelming. Endless starlight poured into her body, turning a once small stream into a vast ocean. The tidal waves howled and crashed. Her body simply couldn't handle it. At this rate, even without Su Zimo doing anything, she'd explode and die from the overload. "She's gone mad," someone said in shock. "This true fate is incredibly powerful, but she can't control it yet. What is she trying to do?" The crowd was full of speculation. Gong Yunar's face was starting to distort under the pressure of the starlight. "Interesting," Su Zimo said, stroking his chin and observing. "I don't accept defeat. No one can beat me," Gong Yunar said flatly. It was clear her body was at its limit, yet she remained calm and composed. Just then, as she was about to be swallowed and consumed by the starlight, suddenly there was a buzzing sound, as if something mysterious had been unlocked. Within a meter radius around Gong Yunar, time began to slow down. It wasn't time being frozen, but rather drastically slowed. Her movements appeared much slower, and star patterns began appearing all over her skin. Her long hair turned deep purple, and her eyes became violet. This shade of purple wasn't eerie. It gave off a dreamlike aura. That is... Someone below the stage slammed the armrest of their chair and stood up. In shock, they exclaimed, "One of the 100 battle physiques, the Starry Sky physique." With the Starry Sky physique, this kind of starlight power is nothing. No matter how much, she can wield it effortlessly. People were stunned. Someone murmured, "She's perfectly resolved the flaw of the star chart." "Don't you think?" Someone else pondered aloud. "She has the Starry Sky physique, ranked 5th, but it matches perfectly with her true fate. It's the perfect combination. Such synergy only makes the Starry Sky physique even stronger." Her purple hair fluttered in the cold, whistling wind. Gong Yuner slowly raised her head, countless stars surging in her gaze. The starlight moved as naturally as her arms and legs. Su Zimo let out a soft laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Gong Yuner asked indifferently. "Some people have the primordius physique, seeking the grand Tao through repeated cycles. Some possess the soaring immortal physique, transcending time and space, yet choose not to fight. Some have the 100 weapons physique, mastering the will of all weapons, aiming to command the world's armory. And you, with the Starry Sky physique, constructing a star chart, plucking stars, seizing the power of heaven and earth, becoming the embodiment of the heavens. Each one a once-in-a-century, or even once-in-a-millennium battle physique, now gathered here at the Martial Heaven Tournament. It's as if this tournament pulled open the curtain of destiny and built the stage. You've all taken the spotlight, born of different times, different origins?" Su Zimo laughed. "What a spectacle! The world is truly a dazzling place." "What are you trying to say?" Gong Yuner frowned. "I'm just telling you and everyone sitting here." Su Zimo slowly raised his right hand. Infernal energy rose into the sky. "Your battle physiques, your true fates, your otherworldly zenith palace, your imperial lineages, they're all just trash." Chapter 8:16 Dominance. Waves of infernal energy spread around Su Zimo. As the infernal aura surged into the sky, black-purple infernal markings slowly appeared on Su Zimo's face. Infernal energy swirled in his eyes, strange yet full of dominance. The aura shot skyward, tearing apart the firmament. The previously dim sky turned pitch black in an instant. This dark infernal energy even shrouded the starlight descending from the heavens. Gong Yuner narrowed her eyes slightly as she looked at the sky. The infernal energy roared and surged. "Number 1 battle physique, the hell-suppressing deity physique," she said coldly. "Even now, you're still a bit weak to me," Su Zimo replied indifferently. "But to help you understand the gap, I'll fight battle physique against battle physique." Gong Yuner's gaze flickered. She didn't speak for a while, but the crowd below erupted. The number 1 battle physique. I heard back during the 6 Holy Lands gathering there were rumors that the number 1 battle physique had appeared. Didn't think it was true. Holy Sun Su is too strong. Why is he so unknown in our eastern continent? Who knows? Maybe he's just low-key and rarely stays in the eastern continent, so we don't know much about him. Ignoring the murmurs from the crowd, Su Zimo raised his hand slightly and made a provocative gesture toward Gong Yuner. "So what if it's the number 1 battle physique?" Gong Yuner replied coldly. "My Starry Sky physique, paired with my true fate, can fight any battle physique." As soon as she finished speaking, starlight around her erupted and she charged at Su Zimo. "Ancestor, should we stop this?" Someone from the otherworldly Zenith Palace asked in concern. "No rush. Let that girl Yuner taste defeat. It might be good for her," the old ancestor replied. "Thankfully, this isn't the battle for heaven's will. There's still a chance to recover." "Is he really that strong? What if our young palace mistress wins?" someone said in disbelief. "Didn't you notice?" the ancestor smiled. "That young man hasn't even used his true fate yet." Everyone around finally realized. From start to finish, their young palace mistress had unleashed her star chart, summoned 8 stars, and awakened her Starry Sky physique. Yet her opponent hadn't even bothered to summon his true fate. It meant he hadn't felt pressured at all. Seeing Gong Yuner appear before him, fists breaking the void as she struck at him, Su Zimo laughed. "How do you want to die?" He raised his right hand and grabbed her purple robe by the collar, then slammed her heavily into the ground. Again and again, left and right, the sound of repeated impacts rang out. The ground cracked and split, forming countless pits of all sizes. 3 stars above shimmered. Su Zimo raised his right fist and, with a single punch, shattered all 3. Gong Yuner's body was flung into the air. Everyone watched in stunned silence as she flew backward. She couldn't even fight back, let alone resist. Her purple hair fluttered midair, and with a loud crash, she hit the ground. "If you've got any trump cards left, use them," Su Zimo said calmly. "I'm not really interested in playing house with you anymore." Gong Yuner struggled to stand up. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and stared blankly ahead. "Defeated," she muttered softly. She couldn't imagine how much this loss would impact her. She knew how she had grown, how many resources she had received. The hopes of the otherworldly Zenith Palace rested on her. She always believed this generation's heaven's will was already in her hands. But now, not only did she lose, she lost completely. She could endure defeat and start over. But this kind of loss, with a gap like a chasm, made it hard to see hope. It felt like no matter how hard she worked in this life, she'd never catch up to him. "What? Going to admit defeat?" Su Zimo asked calmly. "Admit defeat?" Gong Yuner's pupils contracted. No, I won't admit defeat. I can't lose." Like possessed, starlight around her surged several-fold, and she charged at Su Zimo again. "Heavenly star explosion!" she roared from deep within her throat. Under the vast oppressive infernal aura, her starlight still resisted with all its might. But just as she reached Su Zimo, he casually grabbed her throat. Suppressing the starlight around her physique, he slowly lifted her off the ground. Gong Yuner felt her throat burning, like it was about to be crushed. She struggled, staring at the man before her. It was the first time she truly studied this man closely and seriously. Long black hair, infernal energy swirling in his eyes. His face was sharply defined, firm and proud. From him radiated one clear aura: dominance. An incomparable dominance, arrogant and confident. It wasn't arrogance, it was real confidence. And this man deserved to have it. She, Gong Yuner, had seen many people in her life. Her background was extraordinary, even stronger than many imperial lineages. She had long since surpassed the primordial heartlands in vision. She held high standards, no man had ever caught her eye. She wanted to become a woman like Grand Empress Hongtian. But this was the first time she felt fear from someone her own age. He was like an insurmountable chasm standing in front of everyone. Heaven's will was close enough to touch, yet completely out of reach. "Are you going to kill me?" Gong Yuner asked with difficulty. "A man should keep his word. I helped you bury the crystals in this Heaven Genesis microcosm so you could seal the void," Su Zimo replied. "You said you'd destroy the Bailey Imperial clan. How could you go back on your word? What do you really want?" Gong Yuner looked at Su Zimo in confusion. Killing the Bailey Imperial clan, what benefit did it bring him? Su Zimo pulled her closer, his mouth gently nearing her ear. So close, Gong Yuner blushed for the first time in her life. She had never thought of love. She considered herself an ice-cold figure, focused only on power, with no room for emotion or desire. But now, for some reason, her heartbeat quickened. "If you say you'll destroy the Bailey Imperial clan, then keep your word," Su Zimo said. "But don't touch Bailey Shao, she's mine." After he finished speaking, Su Zimo slowly let go of Gong Yuner's throat and turned to walk off the arena. Only Gong Yuner stood there, dazed, watching his back as he left. "Yuner, come quickly," the otherworldly Zenith Palace's ancestor called out. Gong Yuner turned her head and gave Su Zimo one last deep look before finally leaving. Chapter 817, The Ancestors Arrive. Seeing this scene, Everyone present had mixed emotions. Although they had won the competition, they couldn't feel happy about it. Su Zimo was too strong. So strong that they didn't even have the will to resist. They each represented their own lineages, but he was simply the prototype of a young emperor. If that was the case, then in this lifetime the heaven's will would be out of reach for their imperial lineages. That was not good news. Some even secretly wished Su Zimo would just die. Only then would their lineages have a shot at competing for the heaven's will. Bailey Chungfeng remained calm, showing no sign of emotion. He stepped forward first, looked at the ancestor of the otherworldly Zenith Palace, and said, "Everyone, since you lost, keep your word and leave. I suddenly feel like going back on my word," the otherworldly Zenith Palace ancestor said with a chuckle. "You're a major power. Are you throwing away your dignity?" Someone said angrily upon hearing this. "Exactly. Breaking your word makes you no better than a scoundrel." People started criticizing him. But the ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace was clearly indifferent. He said calmly, "Would dignity help us carry the heaven's will? What exactly do you want?" Bailey Chungfeng asked with a frown. He calculated the time. Reinforcements from the Dan Imperial clan should be arriving soon. He didn't need to go to the Dan Imperial clan in person. He could use the teleportation formation in a nearby city to notify the other Imperial lineages. As long as they could hold on until reinforcements arrived through the teleportation array to Bailey City, everything should be fine. There was originally one thing. Now there are two, the ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace said. He pulled a few bottles of pills from his sleeve pocket. He smiled and said, "First, take this pill. Then I'll tell you the second. As for the second thing, kill him." The ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace pointed straight at Su Zimo. "Ancestor," Gong Yuner quickly called out. "He spared me just now. Yuner, don't be soft-hearted. He stands in the way of your path to becoming emperor," the old man said. "But," Gong Yuner hesitated. "Do you feel a shadow in your heart when you face him?" the ancestor asked. "Kill him. End the demon in your heart with your own hands, and you still have a chance to be this generation's emperor." Seeing Gong Yuner silent, the old man frowned slightly. He said, "Yuner, you understand. The lineage didn't raise you for nothing." "I know," Gong Yuner nodded. "Then do as I say." The old man snorted coldly. The immortal energy around him surged, exploding with a sky-shaking aura. The vast immortal energy came crashing down. He directly attacked Su Zimo. The ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace floated in the air above Su Zimo, and his overwhelming power bore down on him. He looked at Gong Yuner and said, "Kill him yourself and end your heart demon. The palace master will forgive your loss." No one around intervened when they saw this. Even the ancestor of the Bailey Imperial clan stood aside and watched. No one stepped forward. Because everyone had the same goal, Su Zimo must die. He was too brilliant, so he had to die. They couldn't do it themselves, so it was convenient to let otherworldly Zenith Palace do it. A black-robed man from the palace handed a long blade to Gong Yuner. Gong Yuner numbly took the blade and walked toward Su Zimo step by step. All eyes were on this moment. Gong Yuner's figure slowly stopped beside Su Zimo. She looked at the man before her. He showed no sign of panic. Instead, he was grinning at her. Is he not afraid of death? Gong Yuner thought silently. She was deeply conflicted. Su Zimo had instilled too much fear in her. As long as he was alive, she'd find it hard to fight for the heaven's will. Logically, his death would benefit her greatly. But Gong Yuner didn't know why. She didn't want to kill him this way. She didn't even want him dead. "Do it," the ancestor urged from above. "D." Gong Yuner shouted, grabbing Su Zimo's collar and pulling him roughly in front of her. She looked at him mockingly as the long blade neared his heart. But Gong Yuner suddenly whispered, "Take me hostage. That's your only way to survive." Su Zimo didn't take her hostage. He just chuckled and said, "You know, all of you have been putting on a show on that stage. Their acting was boring, but you're interesting." "You're crazy," Gong Yuner whispered back. But in the end, her blade stopped a few centimeters short of Su Zimo's heart. "Yuner, what are you doing?" the old man roared from above. Just then, a loud boom echoed. The sky trembled as powerful forces shattered the sealed void. In an instant, like glass breaking, the void collapsed completely. "Reinforcements are here," Bailey Changfeng said with some regret. Su Zimo wasn't dead, which was truly unfortunate. The sky shattered, and the ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace's face changed. He quickly looked toward the void. "Who dares touch someone from the Dan Imperial clan?" a voice rang out. An old man with a bald head and a huge sack on his back stepped out from the void. "It's the Nine-Pill ancestor. The Dan Imperial clan's ancestor is here," someone shouted excitedly. "What's going on?" The ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace muttered. His face tensed. The ancestor of the Bailey Imperial clan also stepped into the air, greeted the Nine-Pill ancestor, and turned to look at the otherworldly Zenith Palace's ancestor. Just then, the sky changed again, and snow began to fall. A giant hand tore through the void, and an old woman in green walked out. She brought with her a blizzard that engulfed the entire Heaven Genesis microcosm. "It's the ancestor of the Qi Imperial clan, the Nether Queen," a Qi elder shouted. The Nether Queen was once a war general under Grand Emperor Bing Shui, and the oldest existence in the Qi Imperial clan. "It's been years since a small force dared to challenge us on the eastern continent," the Nine-Pill ancestor said coldly. "Since you're here, you're not leaving. You think I came to attack the Bailey Imperial clan alone?" The otherworldly Zenith Palace's ancestor shouted. "Everyone come out. Let these imperial lineages see our strength." As he spoke, a massive hand appeared in the southeast sky, covered the sun. Darkness descended, and 3 figures stepped out from the void. Each one seemed to come from the ancient river of time. Their immortal energy surged violently, as if they could shoulder the heavens and pluck the sun and moon. Chapter 818 The Strange Bailey Shao. These figures radiated immense power, like gods and Buddhas emerging from the void. Each one had stepped into the immortal path, and none of them were weak. 3 immortals plus the old ancestor from before, otherworldly Zenith Palace had brought 4 immortals. Such power likely surpassed even some ordinary imperial lineages. "Fight!" The ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace snorted coldly. He then stepped into the air to stand with the 3 other figures, and the aura of the 4 surged into the sky. Their energies connected faintly, suppressing this entire world. Nearby, the Nine-Pill ancestor frowned slightly. For immortals versus their 3, it was clear they were at a disadvantage. At that moment, a loud boom rang out as a black arrow tore through the still sky. It shattered everything in its path, bringing a destructive aura as it shot toward the ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace. That ancestor wasn't ordinary either. He summoned powerful energy around him to try and suppress the arrow, but he clearly underestimated its power. The black arrow pierced through his aura and went straight through the palm of his right hand before vanishing into the heavens. "Pain!" The ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace cried out. Normally, with someone of his level, a pierced palm wouldn't even register as pain. But now, the aura of destruction spreading from it made him cry out, because what pierced him was no ordinary arrow. The 3 other old ancestors focused their gazes toward the distance. From the hazy void, a figure slowly walked forth. He moved slowly, but the river of time swirled around him, and an ancient aura filled the air. The endless void shattered beneath his feet. Finally, the figure emerged from the void, his presence surging. He wore white robes and held a curved bow in his hand. A quiver was slung across his back. Inside the quiver were 7 arrows. Each arrow was black gold, gleaming sharply, with wisps of black energy circling their tips. The bow in his hand was also black-purple, decorated with an image of a fierce beast roaring with its mouth wide open. This bow radiated a sense of total destruction. It felt like the source of annihilation itself. "Qinghe, you're here," the Bailey ancestor said with a smile. Bailey Qinghe, a name filled with legend. He wasn't a war general under an emperor. Long ago, he had been the holy son of the Bailey imperial clan. In that era, many believed he was destined to become an emperor, calling him the young Grand Emperor. He had once challenged the holy sons of all 8 imperial lineages on the Middle Continent alone, and returned victorious. Unfortunately, in that era, he encountered someone even stronger. Grand Empress Hong Tian. In the end, the Grand Empress outshone everyone. But Bailey Qinghe was one of the few survivors of that great battle for heaven's will. Immortal might surged around Bailey Qinghe. He held the world-destroying bow and the 1,000 calamities arrows, Grand Emperor true treasures once left behind by Grand Emperor Chong Kong. The Bailey imperial clan still had someone like you hidden away, said the ancestor of otherworldly Zenith Palace with a frown. 4 versus 4. Now it's fair, Bailey Qinghe said, raising the world-destroying bow. Destructive energy spread from the bow. The surrounding void shattered, glinting with endless light. 1,000 calamities arrow shot out of the quiver, turning into a streak of black light and knocking itself on the bowstring. Kill! With a low growl, the ancestors of otherworldly Zenith Palace surged forward with overwhelming power. Spirit force soared, winds and clouds swirled across the sky. Immortal might roared, void shattered and reformed again and again. Explosions rumbled non-stop. The battle in the sky continued, as if the heavens themselves might collapse. Everyone around watched the battle. It concerned their very survival. Why didn't you kill me just now? Su Zimo asked with a smile. Gong Yuner was silent for a long time before shaking her head and saying, "That's not my style. Either I truly defeat you, or even if I kill you, you'll become a demon in my heart." "I thought you had feelings for me," Su Zimo joked. "What are you saying?" Gong Yuner lowered her head, hiding her expression, quickly denying it. "I told you earlier you're interesting," Su Zimo said. "Actually, you didn't save me just now, you saved yourself." "What do you mean?" Gong Yuner asked in confusion. "You'll understand soon," Su Zimo smiled. At that moment, the sound of footsteps came from nearby. Su Zimo turned and saw Bailey Xiao slowly walking toward him. His expression darkened. He had too many feelings about this woman. Everything from his past life was still fresh in his memory. Even though Su Zimo had defied fate and avoided repeating old mistakes, some things were etched into his bones. "Talk!" Bailey Xiao stopped in front of him and asked. "What do you want to talk about?" Su Zimo asked. "Are you still Bailey Xiao?" "I am Bailey Xiao, and also the Jade Purity Immortal," she replied calmly. "Good," Su Zimo said with a smile to himself. "Then I can really have fun with you. Your growth exceeded my expectations," Bailey Xiao continued. She looked into the distance, her pupils devoid of emotion, a strand of hair drifting in the wind. "Unexpected." Su Zimo laughed loudly. "Are you scared? You misunderstood me?" Bailey Xiao shook her head and said calmly, "Your fate was already sealed. From the moment you were born, it was set. By now, you should have been dead already." "You speak like you control my life or death," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "I don't, but someone else does," Bailey Xiao replied calmly. "All the chaos in the world, we are just pieces on a chessboard. Life and death are decided by the one playing the game. But the player favors white pieces, so I'm white, and you're black, the piece destined to lose." "I don't understand you," Su Zimo said flatly. "I've met many people who told me fate is fixed. But look, I'm still alive and well. You should have died. But you're too unpredictable and that upset the one playing the game," Bailey Xiao said. "Your fate is like a swamp. No matter how much you struggle, it's just surviving. But in the end, the swamp will devour you completely. So what, you came to tell me to accept my fate? Stop struggling?" Su Zimo smiled. "No. I'm just curious." Bailey Xiao shook her head. "How did you obtain one of the 10 primordial God scriptures, the heaven-shattering God scripture?" Hearing her words, Su Zimo's eyes narrowed. Chapter 8:19, I shall conquer the outer heavens. Bailey Xiao's words left Su Zimo deeply shocked. Whether it was the 10 primordial God scriptures or the heaven-shattering God scripture, These were things from the outer heavens. People from the primordial heartlands had no access to them. Not even the sacred lord of the true martial sacred ground could reach them. Yet Bailey Xiao, who had never even been to the outer heavens, somehow knew about them. What scared? Bailey Xiao smiled. It was rare to see Su Zimo looking genuinely shocked. Curious how I know about the outer heavens, aren't you? I am pretty curious. Su Zimo nodded. Have you ever thought about one thing? Bailey Xiao responded. Grand Empress Hongtian bore the heavens will hundreds of thousands of years ago. Why is it that when I reincarnated to cultivate again, I ended up in your era and not another? Never thought about it. Even if I did, I wouldn't figure it out, Su Zimo said. Are you here to stop me from bearing the heaven's will? Interpret it however you want, Bailey Xiao said. A lot of things are far more complicated than you imagine. You're just a speck in the ocean, an ant. If I were you, I'd enjoy the time I have left and prepare for destruction. Never forget who you really are. Who I really am. Su Zimo frowned slightly. She obviously didn't mean the holy son of the true martial sacred ground. That only left one identity, the infernal lord. In this moment, Bailey Xiao appeared shrouded in fog to Su Zimo. He suddenly felt like he couldn't see through her anymore. Or rather, he could see through Bailey Xiao but not through the Jade Purity Immortal. Watching her walk away, Su Zimo felt like he was being drawn into a grand conspiracy. Hey! Su Zimo suddenly stood up and looked at her retreating figure. He grinned brightly. I've heard that water can wear through stone and iron rods can be ground into needles. I've also heard that mayflies can shake trees and ants can look down on the heavens. I've lived this long because I don't believe in fate. Hearing Su Zimo's words, Bailey Xiao slowly turned around. She didn't respond, just looked at him with a sad, yet calm expression. The breeze slowly passed between them, carrying dust but seemingly bringing nothing at all. I could kill you right now, you know, Su Zimo said with a wide grin. I'm just a piece on the board. There are many white pieces. Kill me, and another will replace me. Bailey Xiao replied calmly. But I just hate this particular piece, Su Zimo smiled. You say we're black and white chess pieces, and fate is decided by the player. But what about the player? Who the hell decides their fate? Bailey Xiao stayed silent, and Su Zimo continued. And you, have you gotten used to being beneath others? Used to being a chess piece. Don't lump me in with you. I don't want to be a piece. I want to make the player kneel and call me daddy. You're too weak, Bailey Xiao said calmly. How strong is strong enough? Saint Sovereign? Infinite Tao. Su Zimo laughed. Or maybe I should open all 12 meridian gates and give it a try. The gap in realms cannot be bridged, Bailey Xiao replied. When the time comes, you'll realize just how powerless, weak, and useless you truly are. Like when Chu Yang died? Su Zimo smiled. Bailey Xiao suddenly looked up, her eyes flashing with cold light. You'll die even more miserably than him. I've already died once. What the hell is there to fear? Su Zimo said calmly. I'll make my enemies kneel before me one by one. Even the heavens, I'll flip them upside down. To me, death is nothing. The great tides of fate cannot be reversed. Bailey Xiao seemed unwilling to continue, turning to leave. The great tide cannot be reversed. But is that tide one that I'll create to rule the world? Or is it the so-called player looking down from above? Su Zimo said calmly. Don't be so sure. Maybe even the player is just another piece. Lunatic. Bailey Xiao snorted coldly under her breath and walked off into the distance. Su Zimo didn't say anything more. He slowly sat down, leaning against the edge of the arena. Many thoughts filled his mind. Bailey Xiao said he was supposed to be dead. She was right. In his past life, around this time, he should have died under the main character, Chu Yang's sword. Or perhaps, from birth, he had already been targeted. If he hadn't defied fate in this life, he wouldn't even know any of this. He slowly looked up. At that moment, infernal energy quietly flowed through his pupils. His gaze turned deep and distant, looking far toward the horizon. It felt as though his eyes pierced through layers of space, through the Heaven Genesis microcosm, beyond Bailey City, across mountains and seas, as if he could see the entire world. Street vendors hawked fresh steamed buns. At this moment, someone ranked first in the imperial exams. Someone became wealthy beyond measure. A regular youth entered an imperial lineage. A noble family celebrated with grand feasts. Someone was blessed with many children. A cultivator broke through a long-standing bottleneck. A bird sliced through the silent sky. Towering waves crashed against the blue sea. And a 10,000-foot mountain collapsed with a roar. All the scenes of the world unfolded before his eyes. After a long while, Su Zimo withdrew his gaze. He chuckled and said, "What a lively, bustling world this is." "What's wrong?" Gong Yuner asked in confusion. "Do you think I'm a bad person?" Su Zimo looked up and asked. "I don't really know you," Gong Yuner replied. "But I don't think good or bad can be judged by one or two actions. And good people can turn bad, bad people can turn good." "You're right. Human nature is complex." Su Zimo smiled. "Some live in high towers, some in deep ditches. Some shine brilliantly, some are covered in rust. There are countless kinds of people in the world. One day, I will conquer this vast land. Conquer all people. Conquer this world." He recalled something he once said. "Wherever the sun and moon shine, it shall be demon soil. Wherever rivers reach, all shall kneel to me." Maybe it's time to visit the primordial demon cave. "You'll make it," Gong Yuner said beside him. "As long as you become the Grand Emperor, you'll be the strongest in the world." "No." Su Zimo patted the dust off his clothes and slowly stood up. His gaze was calm. His voice was calm. "I said, I'll conquer the outer heavens." In the freezing December winter, snow fell in midair as cold winds howled. Gong Yuner looked at the figure before her. He felt towering and immense, and the words he left behind echoed in her ears. Conquer the outer heavens. Someone who had never even been there saying he would conquer it. Yet at that moment, she didn't find it ignorant or ridiculous. Instead, she etched his overwhelming presence and those words into her heart. She knew she would remember this moment for the rest of her life. Who dares offend the Eastern continent? The supreme primal sacred ground is here. A thunderous shout came from the distance. Chapter 8:20 The Great Battle begins. With a loud shout, a man dressed like a scholar slowly walked over from the distant horizon. He seemed to take one step per world. When his eyes were closed, he appeared far away. But in the blink of an eye, he crossed layers of void and appeared before the crowd. "Who is that?" someone asked, squinting at the scholar. It seemed he had been absent from the world so long that many had forgotten his name. "The Doomsday Scholar," the Nine-Pill ancestor said with a chuckle, shouting out loud. Upon hearing the name, many people's long-forgotten memories came rushing back. The Supreme Primal Sacred Ground, a lineage with two Grand Emperors, had its founder Grand Emperor Tai Yuan and a second Grand Emperor Hong Yu. And this Doomsday Scholar before them had been Grand Emperor Hong Yu's first war general. With one doomsday brush, where in the world could sorrow hide? As the Doomsday Scholar approached, a radiant path opened beneath his feet. He held a calligraphy brush and wore a green robe that flapped fiercely in the wind. On the side of the otherworldly Zenith Palace, faces grew increasingly grim. Their plan had clearly failed. With more and more forces from the eastern continent arriving, they would never be able to face the entire continent alone. "Who dares offend the eastern continent?" Another calm voice echoed. Though no one appeared yet, the voice had arrived, followed by the formation that instantly blanketed the sky. Within that formation, it seemed to contain all things between heaven and earth. All things revived, lotuses bloomed, mountain birds vanished, and no human trace remained. From a blooming lotus, an old man stepped forth. He sat cross-legged atop a lotus. Unlike the surrounding white lotuses, his was a blood lotus. The flower had 5 petals. The old man had long hair draped over his back, and all of it was blood red. His skin was bronze-colored, and when he opened his eyes, myriad formations roared and the laws of the Grand Tao echoed around him. As he stood up, the formation beneath his feet began rotating rapidly, gradually vanishing into the void and expanding. "That's the formation demon," someone shouted. He had once been the first war general of the Formation Emperor. At one point, he became so obsessed with formations that he descended into madness, studying formations with complete abandon. Perhaps his terrifying appearance had left a deep impression on everyone. The Bailey Imperial clan was located at the heart of the Eastern continent. The forces that could arrive quickly were all from core imperial lineages nearby. Places like the True Martial Sacred Ground or the Divine Sun Sacred Ground, located far in the western regions, would not be able to arrive quickly. Seeing more and more powerful figures appear, someone on the otherworldly Zenith Palace side said grimly, "Let's leave." "I'm not willing," another old ancestor responded. "If we don't go now, none of us will be able to." The otherworldly Zenith Palace ancestors discussed among themselves. "This formation is sealing off the world we're in. Once it completes the seal, none of us will be able to escape. And when all the imperial lineages arrive, we'll be wiped out." "Go!" someone finally roared. Explosions rumbled in the void as the formation demon stood midair and his formation continued spreading. The other ancestors from otherworldly Zenith Palace stopped hesitating and directly tore open the void, attempting to flee. One of their old ancestors glanced toward Gong Yunur's location. It was too late to save her now. "The lineage has treated you well. Take care of yourself." After speaking, he also tore the void and tried to escape. "You think Bailey City is a place you can come and go as you please?" Bailey Qingfeng snorted coldly. His true fate surged behind him, revealing the shadow of the world-destroying Bow and Thousand Calamities arrows. His true fate merged with the bow and arrows in his hand, tearing through the void. The entire sky collapsed under their force. He directly aimed at those fleeing old ancestors and fired. "You go. I'll cover the rear." The last ancestor of the otherworldly Zenith Palace roared. His own true fate surged behind him, manifesting a blood-colored immortal blade. A fusion of blood and immortality, both ethereal and sinfully wicked. The blood-colored immortal blade released a terrifying power, clashing head-on with the Thousand Calamities arrow. With a loud bang, the arrow was knocked aside. The ancestor's aura surged like a mighty river flowing toward the sun, unrelenting. "None of you are leaving," the Doomsday Scholar frowned. The calligraphy brush in his hand grew dozens of times larger, and with one stroke through the air, a character for Seal slowly emerged in the void. That character flew toward the otherworldly Zenith Palace's ancestors, not to kill them, but to hold them back. "You must go and report everything to the palace master," the ancestor with the blood blade shouted. He alone blocked the sealing character. As it entered his body, the sound of chains echoed from within him. The character turned into countless golden chains that shackled him in place. One man alone could not hold off all the ancestors from the imperial lineages. Seeing that the others were about to be surrounded, that ancestor made a desperate move. Bloody energy erupted from his body, soaring into the heavens as he broke free of the chains. Behind him, the blood-colored immortal blade trembled violently. "Get back! He's about to detonate his true fate," Bailey Qingfeng shouted. When a Zenith Immortal detonated all of his power, including his true fate, the resulting energy was immense, enough to obliterate everything. Everyone stopped chasing the fleeing enemies and quickly backed away. The formation demon frowned slightly. With a wave of his right hand, a lotus formation appeared and enveloped the exploding true fate, trying to contain it. In the next instant, a deafening boom rang out, shaking the heavens, like it would tear a hole in the sky and bury all of creation. A massive mushroom cloud appeared in the sky. It grew larger and larger, blooming in the heavens. Even the aftershock alone devoured all the surrounding void, let alone the power at the center. The lotus formation was obliterated instantly. It didn't even last a full second. "They got away," the Bailey ancestor said with regret. What matters is that we're all safe, the Nine-Pill ancestor replied. When we return, we need to investigate properly who exactly founded the otherworldly Zenith Palace, and what is its purpose. The mushroom cloud in the sky lasted about 10 minutes before slowly dispersing. The Heaven Genesis microcosm was now a scarred ruin, likely never usable again. Craters and massive ravines crisscrossed the land. Everyone's expressions were grim. So many powerful people had gathered, and yet they'd only managed to kill a single immortal enemy. And they knew nothing about the otherworldly Zenith Palace. Why did they disrupt the Martial Heaven tournament? What were their goals? No one had any answers. It wasn't a total loss, Bailey Chungfeng said with a smile. At the very least, their young palace mistress stayed behind.